Hey everyone, dim your lights, maybe light a small candle or turn on a gentle fan for that soothing hum. And if you're enjoying this slow drift through history, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Tonight, we leave the familiar shores of the Nile and travel westward to the misty Sierra de Juarez, where long before Monte Albán's terraces rose, small bands of Zapotec prospectors whispered rituals to mountain spirits as they chipped away at jade seams hidden in cloud forest cliffs. These early artisans balanced fire's heat and water's chill to coax gleaming green nodules from stubborn rock, believing each spark and spray carried the blessing, or the wrath, of the mountain guardians. So make yourself comfortable, cradle your pillow, and let's ease into the quiet rhythm of antler picks and crackling braziers. Mountain mysteries and the first discovery. Hey everyone, dim your lights, nestle into your blankets, and if you're enjoying this gentle journey into forgotten pasts, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always comforting to know we're all settling in together around the globe. Tonight we leave behind the wide river valleys and venture into the misty heights of the Sierra de Juarez, where centuries before Monte Albán's monumental plazas rose, the ancestors of the Zapotec made their way along narrow deer trails, guided by whispering mountain winds. Here, in damp cloud forest glades, they discovered something that would come to hold almost mystical power. Jadeite, a rich emerald stone resistant as iron, valued not for its shine or heft alone, but for the glimmer of life that seemed to glow from within. In this first section, we'll trace those early steps, how chance fin. Dias became deliberate quests, how simple tools wrought by hand began to pry secret nodules from living rock, and how ritual and practicality intertwined as small family bands carved out seasonal camps and made offerings to the spirits they believed guarded the stone. Chance discoveries. Along the river, in the early morning hush, when mist still clung to leaf and fern, the first jade nodules revealed themselves in the river shallows. Hunters and gatherers, on their way back from tracking deer or collecting wild herbs, would pause at the water's edge. They scooped handfuls of gravel into their palms, letting the stream wash over the stones. Suddenly, amid rough grey and black pebbles, one would feel something heavier, cooler, a dark green fragment that, when tapped against sandstone, rang with a metallic tone. Unlike ordinary riverstones, these jade pieces held a subtle translucence at their edges, glinting faintly even under the subdued dawn light. At first, these stones were curiosities, tucked into waist girdles as lucky talismans, but as more fragments appeared, crafted families, often the same who maintained hunting rights, began to share word of these finds. By the late formative period, circa 400 BCE, small groups attached greater importance to these green stones, noticing that broken bits revealed even more vibrant inner colours. They realised these weren't merely odd rocks, but a material unlike any they had handled, strong yet capable of a deep inner glow when shaped or polished. 2. Forming the prospecting camps. Recognising the potential of these river finds, families shifted from sporadic jade collection to systematic prospecting upriver. Seasonal camps sprang up at elevations between 1,800 and 2,100 metres, carefully chosen for 3 reasons. Access to exposed outcrops. Steep, eroded slopes often revealed veins of jade running through black serpentinite and feldspar. Reliable water sources, small mountain springs provided fresh water for drinking and ritual purification. Natural shelters, overhanging rock ledges, large boulders or stands of hardy pines offered protection from sudden cloud forest storms. At each camp, the day began with a simple ritual. A small fire of pine resin logs crackled beside a flat riverstone altar. On this altar, a handful of ground cornmeal was scattered in 4 cardinal directions, north, south, east and west, an offering to the mountain spirits, whom the prospectors called Achiaco. Whispered prayers sought safe passage for tools and bodies alike, and a good yielding of jade for the coming sun cycle. Once the offering was made, the group divided tasks. 2 or 3 adults gathered fire-ready logs, another tended the coals and prepared basic porridge for the morning meal, while one youth or apprentice sketched simple tally marks on birch bark or soft pine bark, each notch marking a promising outcrop or a day's find. The toolkit was modest, antler picks fashioned from deer tines, stone mauls of rounded basalt carried from lower foothills, wooden wedges carved from oak or pine slats, and simple rope made from twisted agave fibres. 3. Early extraction techniques, removing jade from the host rock, required a blend of patience, ingenuity, and a deep reverence for the stone's perceived power. The prospectors employed 3 primary methods. Fire cracking. Each evening, selected rock faces were blanketed with coals and embers from the campfire. By dawn, the thermal shock of scorching heat, followed by the cold mountain water poured from gourds, produced hairline fractures, small cracks ideal for prying. Over the course of several cycles, these cracks expanded. Wooden wedge expansion. Into the newly formed fractures, prospectors hammered slender wedges of oak or pine. Overnight, the wedges, soaked by dew or deliberately wetted, swelled, widening the cracks further. This slow, patient pressure could gradually shift. Even multi-kilogram jade nodules. Water. Undercutting, small ditches channeled spring water along fracture lines at the rock base, eroding softer minerals and allowing the block's weight to break free more easily when pried. Each recovered nodule was delicate. Its surface bore patches of dull grey matrix, veined with shining green ribbons. Prospectors laboured to detach every fragment with care, for each piece was believed to carry the mountain's spirit, and shattering it risked spiritual backlash, sudden illness, equipment breakage, or storms. 4. Practical ritual and seasonal rhythms, labour and ritual intertwined. No extraction began without the cornmeal scattering. No wedge was driven without a whispered verse calling on Achiako to grant strength to the carver's arm and steady their heart. The camps followed the mountain's seasonal rhythms. Early rainy season, May-June. Heavy downpours made trails treacherous. Prospectors focused on tool maintenance, resharpening antler picks by scraping them on sandstone whetstones, retwisting agave ropes, and airing out wood wedges in smoky lean-tos. Mid-season, clear skies, July-August. Firecracking reached peak productivity. Long torchlit sessions extended past sunset, the flickering flames dancing across jade veined in candlelight. Late rainy season, September. Fresh green growth obscured trails. Camps dismantled, equipment packed, and teams retreated to lower elevations, carrying their finds for initial finishing near valley settlements. Dry season, October-April. Camps shifted to lower altitudes by tributaries, fragments transported by canoe to emerging Monte Albán workshops where early polishing began. V. From mountain to valley, first polishes and pilgrimages. Once nodules reached the valley floor, they entered a secondary camp, often a family patio or simple stone outbuilding, where rudimentary polishing began. Using hastily fashioned polishing rails, long wooden slabs bedded in pools of fine river sand and water, prospectors would rub the jade for hours, watching dull surfaces slowly gleam. Even in these early stages, the response was unanimous. Jade held a cool vivacity unmatched by local limestones or volcanic stones. Pilgrimages developed. Young men and women, having contributed to camp life, were sent downriver to deposit a fragment at Monte Albán's temples, an offering guaranteeing favour for their families. They carried simple woven baskets and were instructed, present this stone in the morning light, so that its hidden green may catch the first rays and reflect blessings back to the mountain. These rites connected mountain and city, prospectors and priests, stone and spirit in a continuous cycle. Unresolved question, as you picture pine resin fires flaring under starry canopies, antler picks flashing in candle glow, and jade nodules shifting under wet wooden wedges, reflect on this. How might our own interactions with raw materials, from metal ores to digital code, benefit from such a balance of patient technique, ritual respect, and communal purpose that guided those first Zapotec jade seekers? You followed early Zapotec prospectors into mist-shrouded camps where chance river finds of jadeite sparked dedicated expeditions up the Sierra de Juarez. You saw how firecracking, wooden wedges, and water undercutting released raw nodules from rock, and how simple cornmeal offerings and whispered prayers wove ritual into extraction. Now, as jade nodules began their descent to valley workshops, this section traces the next phase, the apprenticeship systems and ritualize. Detraining that transformed unworked stone into sacred objects. You'll meet young trainees, sons, daughters and community youths, who laboured under master carvers in early polishing yards, learn how rites of passage sealed their lifelong bonds to craft, and discover the secret techniques guarded within family lineages, even as Monte Albán's expanding elite demanded ever finer workmanship. Valley workshops and the emergence of specialist roles. Once jade nodules descended from mountain camps, loaded into reed-fletched canoes at tributary inlets, they converged at riverside workshops owned by emerging craft lineages. Here, a rough sorting divided stones by size, colour intensity, and translucence. Master carvers, often elders of founding families, presided over these yards, allocating tasks along a spectrum of specialisation. Rough trimmers, apprentices wielded basalt mauls to chip away excess matrix, isolating the core green zones. This coarse work removed up to half the nodule's mass, but demanded keen judgment. A misplaced blow could shatter a promising vein. Intermediate shapers, journeymen, having proved steadiness with heavier tools, transitioned to stone-tipped chisels. They established preliminary forms, simple discs, rectangular bars, or flattened ovals destined for pendants, beads, or small figurines. Fine carvers, masters and select seniors handled steel-edged blades imported via coastal traders. These superior tools allowed intricate incisions, glyphic symbols, animal outlines, or stylized faces. Polishers, a dedicated group specialized in abrasion sequences, from coarse sandstones to finer schist slabs, culminating in bone powder pastes that coaxed the jade's luster to a soft, inner glow. Each station formed a micro-ecosystem, with material flow protocols ensuring that work advanced smoothly from rough to refined, like stages of a ritual procession. 2. Apprenticeship. Rites, binding stone and spirit. To enter this world required more than physical skill. It demanded initiation into a lineage's secret knowledge. Apprenticeship unfolded in 3 ritualized phases, each marked by distinct oaths, vestments, and tests. A. Novitiate phase, years 1 to 3. The earthen beginnings, oath of entry. On the equinox, prospective apprentices gathered at a simple shrine beneath a large fig tree, where the master carver read a solemn oath inscribed on bark. Youth vowed to honour the stone's silence, to guard the family's cutting secrets, and to temper all pride with patience. Violation meant expulsion and community censure. Uniform of embers. Novices received linen tunics dyed with a faint reddish-brown from charred pine resin, a visual sign of humility before Jade's inner fire. They carried seed-sized jade chips on cords, tokens reminding them daily of the preciousness they served. Basic duties. Tasks included heating water for softening wooden wedges, carrying sandstone slabs between benches, and sweeping jade dust from workshop floors. These duties instilled respect for each stage of production and allowed novices to observe masters from a distance. B. Journeyman phase, years 4 to 7, shaping identity, ceremony of the first chip. After 3 years, each novice faced the first chip test. Given a small green fragment embedded in matrix, they had to remove the outer shell in 3 discrete blows without cracking the core. Success earned a new sash, undyed linen with a single green stripe, granting limited access to intermediate shaping tools. Secret teachings. Journeymen attended after-hours gatherings where masters revealed lineage-specific grinding recipes, proportions of local river sand, animal bone powder, and plant resins that produced unique polish qualities. These formulas, meticulously memorized, were never recorded in writ, preserving family prerogatives. Community service. Journeymen crafted small pilgrimage talismans, jade beads drilled with copper-tipped awls, for distribution at valley shrines. In exchange, they received additional grain rations and occasional woven blankets, reinforcing social reciprocity. C. Master phase, years 8 to 10, culmination and transmission, whetstone vigil. Master candidates spent a night in silent meditation beside an ancient olive wood whetstone in the workshop's inner alcove. As dawn broke, they presented a fully sharpened steel blade, etched with personal glyphs, to the senior master for inspection. Flaws required another vigil. Perfection conferred full master status. Naming of the blade. Upon acceptance, each new master received a named blade, for example, Zype's Reflection or Whisper of Dawn, celebrating both lineage, ancestry, and personal artistry. These blades, dyed faintly with green ochre, served as both tools and talismans. Obligation to teach. Newly minted masters pledged to train at least 2 apprentices within 5 years, ensuring lineage continuity. This formal responsibility, witnessed by the entire workshop, bound masters ethically to the next generation. Vidorn, household workshops, the domestic sphere of jade carving. Unlike large temple projects, much fine jade work occurred within household compounds, multi-generational structures built of adobe and timber. These home workshops blended domestic and craft spaces. Central courtyard bench. A low stone bench in the courtyard served as the primary shaping station, under open sky. Smoke from cooking hearths mingled with jade dust, and family meals often occurred amid sanding echoes. Private shrine niche. A small recess in an outer wall housed a carved figurine, often a stylized jaguar or ancestor mask, believed to protect the household's jade stock. Before each day's work, carvers left a drop of blood from a finger prick on a miniature jade disc in the niche, sealing spiritual guardianship. Evening polishing circles. As daylight waned, families gathered under woven reed mats, sharing pot-boiled stews while carvers passed polished fragments for collective admiration. These polishing circles blended social bonding with iterative quality control, familial pride sharpened by group critique. 4. Knowledge networks and regional variations. Even as core techniques spread through apprenticeship, regional and familial variations gave rise to distinct stylistic schools within the Zapotec sphere. Valle Verde School. Farther downriver, workshops favoured lighter-toned jade and specialised in translucent pendant discs, green circles, using higher ratios of plant resin in polishing pastes to enhance glass-like sheen. Tongo Highlands. Tradition. In upland villages, where cooler climates slowed drying, artisans developed slow-drip vacuum chambers, clay vats with small vents, to apply prolonged pressure while polishing, yielding ultra-fine surfaces prized in elite burials. Coastal intermediaries. Though geographically distant, coastal intermediaries, settlements connecting river and sea trade, adapted Zapotec carving motifs onto imported jade from Guatemala, blending iconography and hybrid necklaces traded across Mesoamerica. These networks functioned through periodic artisan congresses held at Monte Albán plazas, where masters displayed new forms, shared polishing innovations, and negotiated trade of specialized tools, like obsidian-tipped drill bits, ensuring dynamic evolution rather than static tradition. Unresolved point. As you consider the quiet buzz of household workshops, the hushed vows sworn beneath olive-wood whetstones, and the intricate bonds uniting masters, apprentices and spirits, reflect on this. How might our own professions benefit from such structured apprenticeships and community-centered knowledge sharing, where craft mastery is both personal achievement and sacred trust, rather than mere credential or commodity? You trace Jade's journey from hidden outcrops in the Sierra de Juarez to valley workshops where apprentices swore oaths by flickering hearths, masters honed secrets passed through generations, and household polishing circles bound family and craft. Now, in this concluding chapter of Story 1, we witness how those labours produced both material splendour and social transformation, the creation of tomb offerings that guided Zapotec souls beyond death, the consolidation of elite identities around jade prestige, and the enduring imprint of these rituals on Mesoamerica's cultural landscape. Ultimately, we'll reflect on how the careful rites, community bonds, and painstaking techniques of Zapotec jade carving left legacies reaching far beyond the stone itself. The culmination of craft, tomb assemblages, and ritual significance. Elite funerary contexts. When a high-ranking Zapotec dignitary passed from life to death, whether a dynastic ruler of Monte Albán or a wealthy patron in outlying valleys, their tomb became a microcosm of jade's symbolic power. Burials dated to the late formative and classic periods, c. 200 BCE, 800 CE, regularly included beaded collars and necklaces strung with cylindrical and disc-shaped jade beads, often alternating sizes to create graduated collars. Worn in life to mark status, in death these collars encircled the necks of the deceased, signifying continuity of identity into the afterlife. Figurative pendants and masks, carved into zoomorphic or anthropomorphic shapes, jaguar heads to evoke strength, stylized human faces to personify ancestral spirits. These pendants were suspended over the heart, ensuring the departed carried protective guises and sought kinly guidance beyond the tomb's seals. Ritual censers and cups, small jade bowls and censers, polished to a translucent sheen, accompanied food and incense offerings placed around the coffin. Their presence suggested that ceremonial libations of pulque or resins would continue for the funerary period, believed to sustain the soul's journey. These objects were laid out with meticulous care, often wrapped in fine cotton textiles dyed with cochineal red, and placed on raised platforms of carved wood or stone. The tomb's architecture echoed these rituals. Niches carved in lining stones held offerings, while painted glyphs, some inscribed in relief on jade plaques, invoked deities and recorded the deceased's lineage. Rites of installation and sealing, burial ceremonies unfolded over several days. Procession to the tomb. Leading family and guild members carried lit lamps, echoing the workshop's polishing circles, marching with low chants of Uchiyachia, walk on earth. As they passed household workshops en route, they paused at each for a brief offering of incense, uniting life and death in continuous ritual flow. Placement of jade assemblages. Under a canopy of woven palm fronds, The master carver of the lineage personally set each jade object in its designated niche. By law, no less than 3 master carvers, not apprentices, could touch the elite's funeral jade, a safeguard ensuring both technical precision and spiritual propriety. Sealing the tomb. After offerings and hymns, priests anointed the tomb's entrance with a mixture of beeswax and red ochre paste, a final act of lip sealing believed to keep benevolent deities in and harmful forces out. This sealing ritual mirrored the master carver's final polish of a pendant, a last gesture merging practicality and spiritual care. Social transformations, jade as a catalyst of power. A. Consolidation of elite identity, the centrality of jade infused. Nerary practice reinforced social hierarchies. Hereditary craft lineages, families controlling prime mountain camps and valley workshops accrued wealth and prestige. Their names, passed through glyphic seals on jade plaques, became synonymous with quality, granting them privileged marriage alliances and political influence at Monte Albán's court. Redistribution through tribute. Rulers demanded periodic tribute from subordinate towns, often in the form of raw jade nodules or finished jewellery. This tribute network funneled mountain wealth into Monte Albán's coffers, funding temple construction and military campaigns, binding resource zones and political centres into an interdependent system. Ceremonial pageantry. During public festivals, such as the fire festival marking the solstice, elites donned their finest jade regalia in processions through the Great Plaza. The gleam of carved pendants under torchlight reinforced their semi-divine personae, projecting power both practical and mystical to onlookers. B. Economic and cultural ripple effects. Beyond elite circles, jade carving shaped broader society. Specialized trade networks. Artisans in the Sierra de Juarez and Monte Albán exchanged techniques and tools via itinerant merchants who traveled as far as the Gulf Coast. Through these routes, Zapotec jade influenced Olmec and later Maya jade traditions, contributing to a pan-Mesoamerican vocabulary of greenstone symbolism. Artisan mobility and knowledge exchange. Skilled carvers, sometimes decades into their craft, travelled to nearby valleys to train local potters and sculptors in Polish techniques. This cross-pollination enriched regional art forms. Ceramic surfaces imitated jade's sheen, and stone stele gained finer relief work inspired by jade carving's precision. Symbolic adoption in popular culture. Ordinary villagers, even those without direct access to jade, wore green-glazed pottery beads or painted jade motifs on textiles. These adaptations democratized jade's symbolism, fertility, rebirth, protection, embedding its ethos into daily life beyond tomb walls. 3. Decline, memory, and modern reappraisals. A. Post-classic disruptions. By the 9th century CE, environmental pressures, such as soil exhaustion and drought, combined with internal strife to weaken Monte Albán's central authority. Jade carving workshops dwindled, migration of craftspeople. As political centres shifted south toward Mitla and later Cholula, many carvers followed suit, transporting their secret recipes and tools. Some integrated into emerging Mixtec jade traditions. Others adapted to local obsidian carving or transitioned into agricultural labour. Erosion of elite tomb practices. Funerary customs simplified. Elaborate jade assemblies gave way to modest offerings of pottery and shell, reflecting both reduced access to raw resources and changing spiritual emphases. Yet even as large-scale carving waned, memory persisted. In remote villages, elders recounted ancestral tales of master carvers and mountain spirits, preserving intangible bonds with jade well into the early colonial era. B. Rediscovery and heritage revival. The Spanish conquest disrupted Zapotec society, but also inadvertently preserved jade memories. Colonial chronicles, early friars and administrators noted surviving jade beads in local markets, mistaking them for glass trade goods. Their writings, though fragmentary, alerted later scholars to a pre-Hispanic jade tradition beyond Mexico's known sources. 5th century archaeology, excavations at Monte Albán and the Sierra de Juarez, spearheaded by Mexican and international teams, unearthed jade workshops, tool caches and tomb assemblage. Modern analyses confirmed the mountain's unique jadeite chemistry, reviving interest in both scientific and artisanal circles. Contemporary craft resurgence. Since the 1980s, Zapotec communities have re-established small jade workshops, blending ancestral techniques with modern tools. Cultural centres host apprenticeship programs, and artists market jade jewellery alongside explanatory storytelling, reviving both skill and spiritual connection. 4. Reflective resonance, lessons from stone and ritual. As you consider the thousands of hours spent splitting raw nodules, the rites that consecrated each apprenticeship, the tomb treasures guiding souls, and the ebb of craft and memory over centuries, reflect on this. What might our own relationships with the materials we shape, be they metals, woods, or digital architecture, gain from the Zapotec's blend of communal apprenticeship, ritual respect, and generational stewardship, ensuring that our creations carry forward not only technical skill, but a living legacy of care and meaning? River trails, mountain paths, and the logistics of Jade movement, welcome back. Dim your lights, settle deeper into your pillow, and let's drift again into the quiet pulse of history. If you're enjoying these gentle explorations, please like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we follow the jade nodules you met in the Sierra de Juarez, those first dark green stones pried from cloud forest cliffs, on their arduous journey down to Monte Albán's grand workshops. This seemingly mundane logistical feat demanded ingenuity, coordination, and communal labour on a scale almost as impressive as the carved pendants themselves. In this section, you'll trace the riverine highways and mountain mule tracks carved by centuries of use. You'll learn how rafts and reed canoes ferried blocks from TTYs, tributaries to main channels, and you'll walk alongside caravan teams as they loaded heavy loads onto porters, organised rest stations, and overcame mudslides, bandit raids, and flash floods. Through this, you'll see that Jade's journey was as much a story of human endurance and social organisation as it was of craftsmanship. And you'll be left wondering how such logistical networks shaped Zapotec society itself. From tributaries to mainstream. Early river navigation. Tributary catchments and collection points. After the mountain prospectors pried jade nodules from veins and parted them from matrix rock, they packed fragments, some weighing up to 15 kilograms, into woven agave fibre baskets. These baskets were carefully labelled with incised tally marks denoting family lineage and the day's extraction site. Carriers then descended along narrow deer trails to the nearest tributary camps, often where small streams met the Rio Verde or Rio Atoyac. Key tasks at tributary camps. Initial way stations, tribal supervisors, sentinels of lineage authority, recorded each basket's weight using balanced wooden beam scales and standardised riverstone counterweights, ensuring no family took more than its allotted share. Wooden flume construction, where tributaries were steep and rocky, carpenters built short wooden chutes, flumes, lining them with smooth bark to slide baskets into calf-deep pools downstream. This reduced injuries and accelerated movement over waterfalls and rapids. Reed canoes and raft assemblies. By mid-late formative times, the Zapotec had perfected a two-tier river transport system. Reed canoes for light loads, small canoe-shaped bundles of tightly bound tule reeds, reinforced with tar-like resins, carried up to 25 kilograms each. Skilled paddlers navigated these canoes through gentle stretches, steering with carved wooden poles. Timbered rafts for bulky blocks, larger jade blocks, 30 kilograms or more, went aboard rafts made by lashed sycamore timbers atop multiple reed bundles. These rafts, measuring up to 3 metres wide and 5 metres long, support an Oz. 2 to 3 heavy nodules. Launch ceremonies often preceded first flotations of the season. Priest paddlers chanted blessings to Yaqui, river spirits tasked with guiding craft safely to lower reaches. They sprinkled maize beer over raft prows and lit small pine resin torches that bobbed in the river's early chill. 2. Canal barriers and overland portages. Seasonal flood variations and route adjustments. The Sierra headwaters and valley floors sat at markedly different elevations. During flood months, July-August, rafts rode higher waters, often bypassing rapids altogether. Yet in dry seasons, October-April, low water levels forced crews to disassemble rafts and shift to overland portages. Shallow channel bypasses, scouts marked shallow stretches with reed flags, paddlers guided stones onto brittle granite ledges, where porters unloaded baskets onto sledges. Slope track engineering. Carpentry teams laid parallel wooden runners and oiled them with palm fibre oil mixed with fine sand, an early greasing agent, so sledges slid smoothly along compacted dirt tracks. Porter teams and animal draft. Large jade packages, over 50 kilograms, required combined human and animal effort. Human porters. Organised into squads of 8 to 10, porters balanced loads in pairs on woven back straps, coordinating movements to rhythmic chants, chawacha. Each squad rotated at 500-metre intervals, handing off loads like relay batons. Animal draft. Donkeys and oxen supplemented porters on steeper inclines. Leather collars and wooden yokes harnessed beasts to flatbed sledges, while handlers, vested with lineage sigils on cloth armbands, directed teams with whistles carved from deer bone. Along key portage points, travellers found thatched way stations offering shade, water basins, and spiced porridge balls. Young apprentices rotated through way stations, refilling water vessels and distributing barley biscuits, ensuring porters maintained strength and cohesion over days of trek. 3. Risk, reward, and social coordination. A. Natural hazards. Transport networks confronted constant perils. Flash floods, sudden storms above ridgelines could transform mountain streams into lethal torrents, swallowing reed canoes and sweeping away small rafts. To mitigate loss, route planners maintained flood gauges, notched poles marking prior high water lines, and halted movements during critical thresholds. Bandit ambushes, isolated compartments along mountain trails invited raids. To counter this, caravans travelled in armed contingents of carved club-bearing guards, often former hunters skilled in bow and throwing axes. B. Tribute convoys and political safeguards. Elite authorities at Monte Albán instituted tribute convoys under military escort during Jade emblem season, September-October. Official seals, Jade baskets bore painted papyrus tags sealed by temple scribes, guaranteeing official recognition and safe passage under sacred immunity decrees. Any attack on these convoys threatened both secular and spiritual retribution. Community grants. In reciprocation, valley villages received extra grain rations and shared access to cutting residues. Tiny chips of lower-grade jade used for local ritual amulets. This system wove jade transport into Monte Albán's political fabric, transforming economic logistics into a defining element of Zapotec statecraft. 4. Arrival at Monte Albán. Integration into urban workshops. Upon reach of the valley floor, jade-laden rafts and caravans converged at Rio Seco docks, terraced platforms carved into riverbanks. There, unloading rituals mirrored initial mountain ceremonies. Water blessing. An elder ladled river water onto each jade block, invoking ancestry spirits that guided the stone's passage from wild elevation to civic heart. Weighing and inspection. Temple stewards, often women trained in numeracy, reweighed loads, recorded lineage tallies on pottery shards and distributed baskets to specialised workshops. From these docks, baskets travelled via sheltered tree-lined causeways to Monte Albán's central plazas. Along these avenues, scattered rest-colour shrines, small stone altars draped in green cloth, marked family and guild contributions, reminding passers-by of the communal toil that built city splendour. Unresolved question, as you imagine jade glinting under dawn skies, rafts breaking river swells, porter chants echoing through pine-shaded canyons, and the final blessings upon Monte Albán's docks reflect. What does the intricate coordination of riverine, overland and political safeguards reveal about the Zapotec's understanding of resource control and communal responsibility? And how might these ancient logistics inform our own large-scale supply networks today? You trace the jade nodules voyage from cloud forest tributaries, down reed canoe-lined streams, over greased mountain tracks, to Monte Albán's river docks, under ritually sealed convoys and amid porter chants. Now, we step into the heart of the city's workshops and political arenas, where jade's passage became a lever of power, artistry, and social order. You'll see how newly arrived nodules were received, sorted, and assigned to specialised guilds, how ceremonial offerings reaffirmed communal bonds, and how Monte Albán's rulers wielded jade distribution as a tool of statecraft. By the end, you'll understand that jade was not only a raw material, but also a medium through which the city organised labour, taxed tribute, and projected authority across the Zapotec world. I. The reception court. Ritual, record-keeping and distribution. A. The jade docket ceremony. At dawn on tribute days, scheduled to coincide with the valley's annual festival of renewal, the river docks transformed into a reception court. Long wooden tables, their surfaces oiled and burnished dark by age, lined the quay's edge. Before these tables, carriers placed woven baskets of nodules in neat rows. The procedure unfolded in 4 measured steps. Purificatory smoke. Priests carried censers of copal resin, circling over each basket, filling its weave with fragrant smoke. Carriers stood aside, heads bowed and hands clasped, as incense cleansed the raw stones of any lingering journey's talismanic potency. Weighing and tallying, temple scribes, clad in tunics dyed the faintest green to signify their station, used large wooden beam scales and riverstone weights. Each basket's net weight was carefully logged on pottery ostraca, with strokes for multiples of the standard siak, approximately 1.5 kilograms, and dots for units thereof. Official seals applied. A clan representative dipped a small seal carved from green soapstone, bearing the lineage's glyph, into cinnabar paste, stamping it onto a papyrus tag affixed to the basket handle. This seal ensured that each family or workshop received due credit for its mountain labours, vital for future resource allotments. Decanting to guild tables, once certified, baskets were moved to long tables arrayed by workshop specialization: rough trimming, intermediate shaping, fine carving, and pigment polish. Each guild chief, a master artisan recognized by a green ochre-wrapped blade at his belt, stood ready to accept or refuse batches based on stone quality and stylistic needs. This entire ceremony, though orderly, carried an electric tension. Families whose lineage seals appeared at the backlog risked delays in receiving front. Tool rations. Guilds bidding on premium nodules sometimes jostled near the tables, offering small gifts, woven belts or handfuls of maize, to secure choice stones. Your presence at this court would underscore Jade's dual role as both spiritual gift and political token. 2. The Zygal Workshop Complex, Organisation and Material Flow. A. Spatial layout of workshops. Monte Albán's workshops occupied 3 terraced platforms adjacent to the central plaza. Each terrace corresponded to a stage in Jade transformation. First terrace: rough trimming yards, open-air benches of flagstone, where apprentices used rounded basalt mauls and antler picks to remove matrix rock. Water troughs lined one side, enabling quick rinses of newly trimmed cores, while large clay pots stored pigment-rich sludges for later polishing steps. Second terrace: shaping and carving halls. Covered by reed-thatched roofs, these halls featured sturdy wooden benches bolted to stone foundations. Journeymen wielded stone chisels and imported obsidian blades to fashion basic shapes: discs, rectangles, ovals. Floor drains channeled fine jade dust into collection pits, preventing accumulation and potential stone contamination. Third terrace: fine carving, polishing chambers, enclosed rooms with low benches and gentle lantern light, reserved for masters and specialist polishers. Walls displayed reference panels, wooden boards engraved with elite iconographic templates, jaguar heads, human masks, stylized maize stalks. Here, the softest schist slabs, bone powders and resin mixtures yielded the inner glow that defined Zapotec jade artistry. B. Division of labour and apprenticeship integration. Upon distribution, each nodule found its place within a complex labour hierarchy. Rough trimmers received nodules deemed too thickly veined or irregular for fine work. Their job was brutal, bashing off blocks of matra, hicks until the green core emerged. As they chipped away, they produced trim chips, small jade fragments later sold or gifted as talismans.
Intermediate shapers accepted cores sized between 150 and 300 grams, optimal for pendants. Their stone chisels removed large protrusions, setting preliminary outlines. Fine carvers took smaller, more translucent pieces 120 to 200 grams reserved for elite orders. Using obsidian cutting blades, they incised glyphs or carved miniature animal forms with astonishing finesse. Polishers finalized the process. Working under filtered lantern light, they applied layered abrasives, first coarse river sand, then pulverized bone, concluding with plant resin sealants that filled micropores and enhanced refractive depth. Apprentices rotated through each station, spending defined periods: 8 months in rough trimming, 10 in shaping, and a year in fine carving before demonstrating mastery of each craft's core techniques. These rotations ensured a robust understanding of Jade's physical properties and fostered respect for every step in the production chain. Political dynamics. Jade tribute as statecraft. A tribute obligations and redistribution. Jade works reached Monte Albán not simply to supply workshops but as formal tribute, demonstrating loyalty to the ruling dynasty. Valley communities, from Patao to San Jose Mogote, owed seasonal quotas, fixed baskets per house group. A measure of labor and resource capacity. The tribute system served multiple state functions: resource concentration, centralized jade stocks, supplied royal commissions, spectacular thrones, ceremonial blades, and temple revetments. Fiscal accounting. Tribute baskets bore both clan seals and tally marks, denoting arrears or advances, enabling governors to monitor community compliance, social integration. Tribute days doubled as civic festivals, with leaders publicly acknowledging loyal communities, reinforcing hierarchies through ceremonial gift exchange. Of maize and pulque disputes occasionally arose, a village might contest its tally, claiming rains-ardent harvests hampered tributes, or suggest an unfair weighting of fewer, larger nodules. Appeals went to the tribute council, assembly of temple priests, lineage elders, and city magistrates who convened in the Hall of Glyphs, a building plastered with carved records of past decrees, resolutions, balanced ritual apology offering, extra incense with fiscal adjustment, keeping social peace. B. Elite patronage and monumental commissions. Simultaneously, Monte Albanese rulers and high priests commissioned grand works that showcased both raw material and political might. Royal scepters and staffs emblazoned with jade inlays. These insignia signified divine right. Distributed to governors in distant provinces, they extended the ruler's presence and demanded obedience. Temple cladding. Floors and altars of the great plaza temples often featured jade mosaic small tesserae fitted like puzzle pieces, subtle emerald patterns under torchlight. Crafting these floorworks required coordination among dozens of workshop teams working in strict secrecy. Processional objects, enormous jade discs sometimes a meter in diameter and carved with cosmic symbols, were paraded during major festivals. Transporting them from workshops to plazas involved elaborate rites, chants, and protective facings of woven reeds. Such commissions underscored jade's potency as a political instrument, transforming a once remote mountain harvest into a daily reminder of the ruling class's access to sacred materials. For resilience and adaptation, addressing logistical crisis while the system functioned smoothly most seasons. Unexpected events tested the network's resilience. A flotilla disruptions, years of extreme floods, rising rivers made only the highest docks accessible. Rafts could no longer land at traditional key points. In response, high water depots, temporary staging platforms, wooden trestles built atop stone. Foundations were erected at higher elevations. Carriers ferried jade up sloped ramps into protected courtyards. Overland bypass routes, a detour trail circled swollen channels, adding days to the journey but preserving tribute flow. Guides marked these bypasses with carved wooden posts topped by perched jaguar figurines. These adaptive measures, maintained by a specialized resilience guild, highlighted pre-Hispanic Zapotec emphasis on planning for environmental variability. Supply shortages and artisan strikes. Occasionally, conflicts between tribute obligations and craft needs culminated in disturbances. One famous incident, dated to 150 CE and recorded unbroken, Steely described a 3-day strike by journeymen demanding additional tool rations. They argued that poor quality chisels slowed production, jeopardizing tribute quotas. Temple authorities relented tool provision reforms. New oversight assigned extra bronzes and infusion of obsidian blades into every guild's inventory. Ration adjustments, temporary increases in pulque allocations, sustained morale. Dialogue mechanisms. A permanent artisan council was founded, comprising masters and representatives, to address technical grievances before they escalated. This episode underlines the Zapotec's recognition that jade artistry depended not solely on raw material, but also on the well-being and agency of those who shaped it. Unresolved question as you picture hundreds of baskets passing through smoky docks, masters overseeing each stage, tribute councils negotiating jugs of pulque for extra chisels, and flotilla ingenuity preserving jade flow. Reflect on this. How do modern supply chains, global in scale, yet rooted in local these ancient systems of tribute, negotiation, and adaptive planning? And what lessons might we draw from Zapotec resilience when our own networks face environmental shocks and labor disputes? You journeyed alongside baskets of jade nodules from mountain streams, through rid canoe flotillas, over greased mule tracks, into Monte Albán's bustling docks and tiered workshops, seeing how ritual, logistics, and politics intertwined to sustain a sophisticated craft complex. Now, we arrive at the culmination, the masterworks that emerged, their transformative impact on Zapotec society, and the reverberations of that legacy today. You'll witness how jade objects shape social hierarchies, spiritual beliefs, and Mesoamerica's broader artistic currents, and end with a reflection on how the polished surfaces of ancient stones continue to mirror our own values of collaboration, adaptation, and reverence. The creation of masterworks, from workshop to ritual centerpiece, iconic pieces and their significance. The green scepter of Danzante's plaza, standing nearly a meter tall. This ceremonial staff, carved from a single jadeite trunk, rests upon a seed pod-shaped base and tapers into a serpent motif at its finial. Its creation spanned 8 masters over 2 years. Each layer of relief carved in diminishing stages. Primary roughing. 6 large nodules were joined via polished, interlocking grooves and sealed with plant resin paste. Secondary carving. Under a reed-thatched shelter, master carvers incised serpent scales and hieroglyphic banding, recounting the mythic descent of lightning on maize fields. Final polish. Using bone resin pastes and laboring for months in candlelit chambers, polishers coaxed an inner glow that shifted from deep forest green and shadow to luminous emerald and torchlight. As it was paraded during the New Year's festival, the staff symbolized both the ruler's divine mandate and the collaborative mastery of the city's craft lineages. Jade funerary masks unearthed in elite tombs of the East Plaza. These rigid faceplates carved to lifelike proportions covered the deceased's visage, merging ancestral portraiture with cosmic symbolism. Small drilled holes permitted binding to wooden mask frames, allowing slight mobility. Their surfaces bore incised star patterns and feline whisker motifs, intended to guide the soul through celestial realms. Each mask testified to the high esteem in which jade artistry was held. Only the most skilled master carvers attempted their seamless curves and precise symmetry. Ritual. Deployment of masterworks. Masterworks transcended mere display. They entered ritual cycles that reinforced social cohesion. Solar alignments on equinox days. The green scepter was placed in the plaza's sundial cut into bedrock, its serpent head casting a shadow that traced communal calendars. Priests read these shadows to announce planting seasons and festival dates. Ancestral veneration ceremonies, jade funerary masks, removed from sealed tombs only during the moon-waning festival, were carried in silent torchlit processions through cliffside shrines, allowing living kin to commune with forebears. In these enactments, jade objects became active agents in shaping Zapotec cosmology, bridging human, natural and divine realms through tactile artistry. 2. Social transformations, craft, class, and cultural identity. Elevation of artisan lineages. The logistical and ritual complexity of jade carving elevated master artisans into a semi-elite stratum. Hereditary privileges. Lineages that controlled top-tier mountain camps and produced masterworks received tax exemptions on their cultivated plots, a recognition of their indispensable role. Their homes, located near the city's center, featured private shrines displaying lineage blades and earliest apprenticeship talismans, marking them as living archives of craft knowledge. Political alliances. Artisan families were sought as marriage partners by ruling clans. A master carver's daughter marrying into nobility brought not only familial alliance but also secure access to raw jade, further intertwining social and economic networks within Monte Albán B. Cultural diffusion and pan-Mesoamerican influence. Zapotec jade techniques influenced neighboring cultures. Teotihuacan workshops in the 4th century CE. Itinerant Zapotec carvers introduced bone powder polishing pastes to Teotihuacan, revolutionizing the sheen of obsidian mirrors and greenstone mosaics in central Mexico. Maya elite adoption. Classic Maya texts reference stone of the Western Mountains, suggesting luxury trade in Sierra jade. Maya workshops adapted Zapotec iconography, feathered serpents and maze glyphs onto their own jadeite masks and scepters. Thus, Monte Albán's logistical networks extended culture as well as material, making jade a conduit for shared ideologies of power, fertility, and cosmology. III decline, rediscovery, and modern renewal. Crisis and post-classic transformation. By the 9th century CE, political fragmentation and environmental pressures eroded centralized jade production. Shifts to obsidian and ceramic craft. As tribute systems faltered, many artisans turned to volcanic glass, which remained locally abundant. Though lacking jade's translucence, obsidian carving preserved key iconographic motifs, seagull feathers and celestial discs in everyday objects. Rural survival of jade lore. In remote villages, oral traditions kept jade memories alive. Elders recounted apprenticeship chants and tool recipes, passing them silently amid Spanish-influenced ceramic beads, ensuring the craft's intangible core endured. 20th, 21st century heritage and craft revival. Modern initiatives have rekindled ancient legacies. Archaeological collaborations. Mexican universities, in partnership with Zapotec communities, mapped ancient workshops, excavated tool caches, and documented sanad sequences. These projects prioritized indigenous voices, recording elder testimonies alongside material analyzers. Contemporary artisan cooperatives. Today, cooperatives in Oaxaca's highlands blend ancestral techniques with modern tools, demandrel bits, and mechanized polishers to produce jade jewelry for global markets. Workshops host apprentices under mentorship programs, reviving structured training ceremonies and lineage, naming rituals adapted for today's context. Cultural tourism and festivals. Monte Albán now hosts an annual Festival of Stone and Spirit, featuring jade carving, demonstrations, ritual reenactments, and exhibitions of classical masterworks. This festival draws visitors worldwide, fostering economic opportunities while celebrating communal heritage. For reflective resonance, jade's mirror to human endeavor, from hidden mountain veins, through riverine channels and mule tracks, into ceremonial docks and tiered workshops. 2 tombs and festivals. Jade's centuries-long passage illuminates core aspects of human society. Collaboration and division of labor. Meticulous logistics required cooperation across geographic, social, and technical boundaries. Ritual infusion of work, acknowledging material agency through offerings and vows. Cultivated respect and resilience. Knowledge transmission. Structured apprenticeships and lineage secrecy. Created durable cultural architectures. Adaptation to change. Environmental shocks and political shifts prompted both crisis and innovation, demonstrating flexibility within tradition. As you rest with this story's final glow, consider in our own complex globalized networks, from technological supply chains to community craft movements, how might we integrate ritual respect, structured mentorship, and adaptive collaboration to forge legacies as enduring and luminous as the Zapotec's jade masterpieces? The rhythm of Hammer's origins of percussive jade shaping. Welcome back. Dim your lights, nestle into your blankets, and let the distant echo of stone on stone guide you into another quiet chapter of ancient craft. If you're finding these slow histories soothing, please like and subscribe and share where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight we step into the shaded courtyards of early Zapotec jade workshops, where the first cut struck by handheld mauls and hammerstones began to liberate gleaming green cores from their rocky matrices. It was here, beneath reed-thatched roofs and among the hush of focused artisans, that percussion techniques took shape, methods honed by trial, error, and ritual respect for Jade's hidden power. In this first section, we'll trace the evolution of these techniques from simple hammerstone strikes to controlled flaking with antler. Billet tools explore how early carvers balanced force and finesse, and discover the apprentice's first rhythmic chants that bound tool, carver, and stone in a timeless cadence. The workshop arena, space, tools, and early organization. Workshop layout and workstations. Early Zapotec jade workshops, often adjacent to household compounds, opened onto central courtyards paved with flagstone. These courtyards served as percussion arenas, where natural light and airflow allowed dust and debris to settle away from indoor niches. Workshops featured percussion benches, rough-hewn wooden benches, built low to the ground, where carvers sat, cross-legged or knelt. Each bench held a stone anvil, a heavy, flat granite block set into the ground to absorb hammerstone impacts without rebounding dangerously. Fire-cracked rock shelters, overhanging rock slabs, or simple reed roofs filtered light, reducing glare on jade surface. Beneath these shelters, carvers stored toolkits. Woven red mats held arrays of hammerstones, antler billets, and initial polishing stones. Apprentice circles around each master's station. Novices formed semicircles, observing the first steps of jade transformation. Their apprenticeships began with tool handling and maintenance, learning to select suitable hammerstones and shape antler billet skills, essential before delivering a single strike. Percussion tools. From river cobble to antler billet, earliest percussive tools were adaptations of hunting and food preparation. Implements, hammerstones, rounded cobbles, often basalt or quartzite size to fit comfortably in the hand, weighing between 200 and 600 grams. Carvers selected stones by heft and resonance. A firm, dry ring when tapped indicated minimal internal fractures, ensuring consistent force transmission. Antler billets, carved from deer or elk antlers. Billets featured broad, flat striking surfaces. Their organic resilience allowed softer impacts, preventing jade from shattering. Billets were conditioned by soaking in water, sometimes mixed with pine resin, rendering the antler slightly more elastic and less prone to splintering. Wooden mallets, less common but used for preliminary gross removal. Wooden mallets from dense local woods like mosquito fir, lighter, more controlled strikes. Ideal for separating larger matrix chunks. Each tool type served distinct functions. Hammerstones for initial battery, antler billets for controlled flake removal, and wooden mallets for shaping. Master carvers supervised apprentices in selecting and maintaining these tools, smoothing billets on sandstone whetstones and renewing hammerstone surfaces by flake chipping them to remove micro-cracks. Technique development, from rough strike to controlled flaking. A rough trimming, establishing the core form. The first visible transformation of a jade nodule occurred through rough trimming, where carvers used hammerstones to peel away the bulk of the host rock. Edge strikes, carvers held the jade nodule firmly against the stone anvil, then delivered a series of glancing blows along its edges. This technique, akin to wedge splitting, produced flake scars, rough chips that gradually revealed the stone's verdant interior. Angle control. The angle of attack, approximately 30 to 45 between hammerstone and jade surface, balanced flake length and depth. Shallow angles yielded longer, thinner flakes, while steeper angles removed deeper chunks but risked uncontrolled fracturing. Rhythmic cadence. Apprentices chanted a steady refrain, taka taka taka, synchronizing blows across teams working on larger cores. This rhythmic chant maintained consistent force and, according to tradition, aligned the artisan's intentions with the stone's latent spirit. Transition to antler flaking, refining the outline. Once the general outline emerged, carvers introduced antler billets for controlled flaking. Platform preparation. A small, flat platform is essentially a shallow notch carved into the jade edge. Concentrated impact force. Carvers smoothed platform surfaces with coarse sandstone to prevent billets from slipping. Delicate strikes, holding the antler billet at a fine angle. Carvers delivered precise taps, sometimes only 6 to 8 grams of force, removing flakes as thin as 2 to 3 millimeters. These flakes refined curves and angles, shaping pendants, disc faces, or edged ceremonial blades. Progressive refinement. Master carvers evaluated each flake scar before proceeding. If a flake veered off track, threatening a fissure, they halted, repositioned, and re-established a new platform. This iterative process could last days for a single pendant outline. Apprenticeship and the transmission of technique. Observational learning and mimicry. Novices spent their first year in percussion observation. Permitted only to shadow masters kneel behind a master's bench, watching every strike, the angle of attack, and the tool's resting position. Masters adjusted chisel and billet grips imperceptibly changes. Novices learn to discern by careful mimicry, tool handling drills, practicing swings on scrapstones. Novices learned to regulate wrist flick and elbow arc. Correct form prevented repetitive stress and ensured even flake removal. B. Graduated. Practice from scrapstone to noble jade after mastering tool control on river cobbles and low-grade matrix. Apprentices advanced in stages. Practice scraps they began on trim chips, jagged jade fragments, unsuitable for finished works, practicing both hammerstone strikes and billet, tapping until consistency matched their master's guidance. Trial tasks. Small experimental cores 100 to 150 grams were assigned. Apprentices submitted these to master review. Successful outlines earned them their first green ochre stripe sash, symbolizing entry into intermediate shaping. This structured progression ensured novices internalized percussive rhythms and revered the stone's potential before handling large, costly nodules. IV. Cultural and spiritual dimensions of percussion. The hammer's invocations. A part tradition held that the first strike on each nodule carried special weight before any percussive action. Carvers performed a brief invocation by earth's silent song and mountain's breath. Grant me vision, clear and hand steady, that each strike may reveal your heart within. The invocation, delivered in a low hum, set intention and maintained respect for jade's perceived sentience. Mistimed or disrespectful strikes believed to offend the stone could result in misaligned flakes or tool damage, reinforcing ritual compliance through practical outcomes. B. Festival of the First Cuts. At the start of the carving season, when new jade shipments arrived, a festival of the first cuts brought artisans, temple priests, and civic leaders together. Ceremonial striking. A chosen master performed inaugural hammerstone blows on a gifted nodule, while priests offered copal incense and villagers beat tambourines. Communal feast. After the first cuts, the workshop courtyard hosted a modest meal of maize, tamales, squash, broth, and pulque. Apprentices secured their next tool rations based on ceremonial performance, tying technical prowess to social reward. This festival reinforced jade carving as both a technical craft and a communal sacrament, aligning individual skill with collective identity. Unresolved question. As you envisioned the echo of hammerstones on anvils, the antler billets, soft taps refining jade edges, and the rhythmic apprentice chants beneath straw roofs. Reflect on this. In our own pursuits of skill, whether crafting code, performing surgery, or composing music, how might we harness the power of disciplined apprenticeship, ritual intent, and rhythmic practice to deepen both mastery and meaning in the work of our hands? You witnessed the birth of percussive jade shaping in Monte Albán's open courtyards, apprentices shadowing masters, hammerstones ringing on granite anvils, antler billets delicately flaking away excess matrix. Now, we delve into how these foundational techniques evolved through innovation, supported intricate social bonds, and underpinned an economic system that fueled Zapotec power. You'll explore experimental tool developments, guild collaboration rituals, and market dynamics that turned jade percussion into a linchpin of both daily life and long-term statecraft. Technical innovations. From handheld implements to mechanized aids, refining hammerstone selection and treatment. As workshops matured, master carvers recognized variation among hammerstones, differences in density, internal structure, and shape that affected flaking precision. To standardize tools, sourcing specific lithologies, carvers identified particular basalt outcrops, coarse-grained, with evenly distributed feldspar, whose stones produced the most consistent ring and resisted fracturing. Journeymen made quarterly sourcing trips to these quarries to replenish stocks. Surface conditioning. To remove surface microfractures, hammerstones underwent flake trimming. Carvers used antler billets to peel away nervy outer layers, creating a uniform striking face. They then applied a thin smear of boiled pine resin, which filled tiny pits, improving contact friction and reducing slippage. Weighted variants. Some hammerstones were hollowed at the core by repeated flaking to reduce weight slightly, enabling quicker, more precise strikes. These light voice stones suited delicate operations, while unmodified stones handled primary rough trimming. B. Introduction of simple, leveraged jigs. While handheld percussion sufficed for many shapes, carvers developed leveraged jigs to tackle larger or more complex forms. Adjustable A-frames. Wooden A-frames anchored to the anvil block served as fulcrum devices. Carvers drilled small holes through jade cores and threaded them onto stout wooden pegs inserted in the apex. By applying downward pressure on the A-frame's crossbeam, they could exert controlled tensile force, separating heavy protrusions without direct hammering. Weighted pendulums. Innovators borrowed from agricultural lint cleaning winnowers, experimenting with leather-bound stone pendulums hung on joints. A calibrated swing delivered rhythmic low-angle impacts, polishing initial flake scars into smoother surfaces. Though eventually supplanted by finer abrasion stones, these pendulums represented early mechanization of percussive action. Rotary braces for drilling. A critical innovation addressed the need for stringing beads. Rotary bone braces, L-shaped handles carved from deer on held thin copper or obsidian drills. While not percussive in the strictest sense, These braces complemented flaking by enabling pre-drilled guide holes. Masters and specialists integrated flipping motions with light percussion to coax drills through Jade's hard matrix to Guild's hard matrix. To Guild, collaboration and ritual cohesion, a formation of percussion. Guilds as apprentices progressed and workshops expanded, formal percussion guilds emerged. Each guild held ritual seatings on the eve of the carving season. Guild members gathered at a communal shrine and alcove carved into a large boulder beside the central workshop courtyard. They sat in concentric rings, from master in the center, 2 novices on the outermost edge, and shared a mildly fermented corn beverage. In low tones, they recited the hammer's oath, by stone's hidden heart and antler's resilient pulse. We vow to shape only with respect, to teach only with patience, and to protect the secrets that bind us. Maintained secret registers. Guild scribes recorded lineage blade names, stone source maps, and advanced flaking recipes in bark-bound codices. Access required formal initiation. Breaching confidentiality led to expulsion and loss of craft status. Enforced quality standards. Completed pieces submitted for elite orders. Underwent a flake inspection. Senior masters examined flake scar edges. Under soft lamplight, rejecting works with erratic scars or excessive rejected pieces were sent back for additional trimming or redirected to lower status markets. B. Communal workspaces and support roles to maintain workflow across the percussion stages. Guilds organized communal roles beyond carvers, tool custodians, responsible for tool maintenance, sharpening, resin conditioning, and replacement conditionings worked in a dedicated alcove with milling slabs and worked waste pits for used sanding pastes. They issued tools daily, tracking each item's condition and return. Ablution attendants, since jade dust proved hazardous in lungs and on skin. Workshops established washing stalls, shallow basins fed by clean spring water, where carvers rinsed hands and faces between tasks. Attendants often apprenticized, refilled oil lamps, and spread fresh mats for tool storage. Supply coordinators managing tally logs. Coordinators allocated work orders, mapped nodule assignments, and negotiated tribute quotas. During seasonal surges, they arranged auxiliary labor farmers on off months to assist in rough trimming yards, illustrating broad community investment in the craft. III. Economic mechanisms, marketplace exchanges and tribute redistribution, craft markets and artisan commerce. While most jade carving served elite commissions, a bustling artisan market thrived at Monte Albán's southern gate open-air stalls. Carvers displayed flake-trimmed discs, bead strands and partially polished pendants for purchase by merchants and traders. Buyers from local temple attendants to foreign envoys negotiated prices based on size, translucence and rarity of green hues. Barter networks, transactions often involved barter, prized jade, pieces exchanged for cacao beans, richly woven cloth or imported shells. These direct trades fostered cross-cultural ties, introducing novel motifs and inspiring hybrid forms in later artistic epochs. Quality. Grading, a standardized grading scale, 3 tiers from emerald crown, top translucence, and color to forest. Shadow less transparent, lower value helped stabilize prices and guided consumer expectations. Guild scribes stamped each piece's grade on small attached tags of dyed bark paper. B. Tribute, reflow, and redistributionally consumption of jade exerted downward economic pressures. State-sponsored workshops, the ruling polity maintained royal workshops, reserved for high-status projects, temple adornments, dynastic scepters, and palace furnishings. These workshops received first picks of tribute jade and paid artisans lavish grain and textile rations, community dividends after fulfilling royal commissions. Leftover tribute jade distributed to lower status workshops funded public welfare, financing canal repairs, communal feasts, and apprenticeship stipends. This model tribute and public benefit out-cemented the craft's role in both elite symbolism and civic stability. For crises and adaptations, labor disputes and environmental shifts, labor resilience amid scarcity as regional jade yields fluctuated due to over-prospecting or seasonal access challenges. Percussion. Guilds confronted resource shortages. Guild solidarity strikes. When tribute quotas spiked without adjustment to tool rations, guild members staged work stoppages, clearing workshops and marching to the Hall of Glyphs to petition for fair compensation. Their demands recorded on pottery, astrocosot extra resins, obscure anvil stones, and temporary tribute relief for drinking water repairs in mountain camps. Alternative materials. Artisans experimented with serpentine, a softer greenstone, locally abundant as a stand-in for lower-tier orders. Though lacking jade's prestige, serpentine carving preserved percussion skills, sustained market trade, and allowed continuous training during jade shortages. B. Environmental constraints and supply. Realignment, climate variations, extended drought, years reduced water flow in tributaries, hampering river transport of raw nodules. Seasonal transport shifts. Guild coordinators shifted effort toward overland portages during low water seasons, reinforcing mountain-to-valley mule tracks and investing in sturdier sledges. These infrastructure improvements overseen by artisan councils benefited multiple resource flows, not just jade. Resource conservation measures, recognizing long-term scarcity risks. Guilds instituted stone recycling, recovered flake trims, and rejected pieces were ground into polishing powder or inlaid into mosaic pendants, creating value from waste and reducing pressure on Ronagel supplies. Unresolved point is you consider the ringing dance of hammerstones, the hush of inspection chambers, the hum of barter in open markets, and the resilience of guild unity in times of scarcity. Reflect on this. How do our modern professional communities spanning technology, medicine, and the arts balance innovation, collective welfare, and resource stewardship to sustain both craftsmanship and social cohesion? In an ever-changing world, you witness the birth and evolution of percussive jade shaping from hammerstones ringing on granite anvils in mist-cooled courtyards, through antler billet flaking rituals, to guild innovations with A-frame jigs and pendulum polishes. You saw how percussion guilds wove technique, ritual, and social cohesion into every strike, and how their labor-fueled Monte Albanese political economy. Now, you'll follow these percussive methods to their culminating artistry, grand masterworks that shaped Zapotec identity, the social transformations they enabled, and the enduring legacies both material and intangible that echo into our own time's eye. The culmination of percussive craft, masterpieces of Jade. The Echo of Thunder Scepter. One of the most celebrated products of percussive mastery was the Echo of Thunder Scepter, a 1.2-meter-long ceremonial staff made from a single jade trunk. Its creation spanned 3 years and illustrates the peak of percussion technique. Initial percussive, roughing 6 master carvers coordinated a relay of hammerstone and billet work, stripping away the surrounding serpentine matrix. A network of Afram jigs stabilized the growing form, allowing controlled separation of large flakes while preserving the jade's core integrity. Articulated carving. Once the scepter's basic taper and curvature emerged, artisans used light voice hammerstones hollowed to precise weights to refine the staff's sinuous contours. Antler billets then incised the sinuous thunder serpent motif that winds up the staff, its flake scars revealing a shimmering interplay of light and shadow. Final polishing ritual in an enclosed chamber draped with silken banners. 9 polishers applied progressive abrasion scores river sand, then pulverized bone, and finally a resin-infused passed over several lunar cycles. A nightly vigil, conducted by the master in charge, involved rotating the scepter before flickering torchlight, ensuring uniform sheen and honoring the invocation. May the strike of stone reflect the strike of clouds, and may each gleam carry the sky's own voice. This scepter, carried in the ruler's hands during the fire festival, symbolized the union of earth, craft, and divine tumult. Its creation, an orchestration of percussive prowess and ritual precision. B. Funerary mask. Of the Jaguar Lord. Aquili striking is the Jaguar Lord funeral mask, a life-sized visage carved from a singular jade block weighing nearly 35 kilograms. Heavy strike outline masters employed large hammerstones to delineate broad facial planes, cheeks, brow ridges, and jaw outlines, working on a suspended platform above a clay pit to catch flake debris. A-frame jigs stabilized the mask's center of gravity, preventing breakage under the force of heavy blows. Detail flaking with billets after uncovering the mask's general shape. Artisans switched to antler billets for delicate removal of undercut, whiskers, feline eye slopes, and ear contours. Each billeting strike required meticulous alignment. A single misjudged tap could fracture the mask's dainty ear tip. Symbol-infused chiseling and polished surfaces. Shallow relief, hieroglyphs, clan, emblems, and calendrical glyphs marking the deceased's birth and death were chiseled using fine obsidian blades. Though not percussive, this step honored the mask's ritual role, guiding the Jaguar Lord's spirit through cosmological realms. Displayed within the Great Tomb of the East Plaza, this mask fused percussive strength and spiritual symbolism as flawless curves bearing silent witness to master carver's skill and the communal rites that consecrated each strike to social transformation through jade percussion. Elevation of artisanal status. The labor, secrecy, and ritual surrounding percussive techniques elevated master carvers to semi-divine status. Political integration. Master carvers, recognized by their green ocher-wrapped blades and A-frame badges, sat alongside nobles at palace councils, advising on resource allocation and festival planning. Their expertise in raw stone revelation translated into authority over tribute management, underscoring craft mastery as political capital. Hereditary recognition. Lineages that pioneered key innovations such as light voice, hammerstones, or pendulum. Polishers earned exemptions from certain civic duties and received prime residential plots near the central plaza. Their ancestral altars, adorned with early percussive tools, became neighborhood shrines, cementing artisanal legacy in stone and story. B. Economic ripples and interregional exchange. The demand for percussively shaped jade catalyzed broader economic patterns. Specialist tool trade will write-like workshops emerged, producing standardized A-frame jigs and pendulum harnesses, exporting them to Mixtec and Maya centers. Zapotec toolmakers thus influenced Mesoamerica's broader metal and stone industries market. Diversification. Percussive scrap chips once waste were ground into jade dust paint used by potters and muralists. A network of dye merchants sold this vivid pigment, embedding jade's green hues into ceramics and temple facades across southern Mexico. III. Decline of percussive traditions and subsequent revivals. A post-classic decline under changing polities. By the 9th-10th centuries CE, Monte Albán's power waned. Percussive workshops contracted, resource shifts as tribute collapses, reduced jade inflow, carvers turned to local serpentine and obsidian. Repurposing percussive techniques, hammerstone strikes and flake removal to new materials, though lacking jade's luster. These adaptations preserved percussive skills amid resource constraints. Dispersal of master carvers migrated to emergent centers. Calendrical Mitla carrying percussive knowledge and oral lineages. They trained local artisans in rhythmic strike techniques now applied to building stones and everyday lithic tools. B. Modern rediscovery and heritage stewardship in the 20th century. Archaeologists and community activists collaborated to revive percussive jade shaping. Experimental archaeology excavation teams replicated hammerstone and billet techniques on recovered tool sets, documenting strike angles and flake scar patterns. These reconstructions, published in labor-intensive treatises, illuminated ancient carvers' ergonomic practices. Contemporary artisan workshops. Zapotec cooperatives host live demonstrations. Artisans shape serpentine using traditional hammers and antler billets, teaching percussive chants and tool treatment rituals. These workshops attract global students preserving percussive heritage through intentional cultural transmission. 4. Reflective legacy. Percussion as a model for modern craft. From mountain quarry to polished mask, percussive jade shaping fused force with finesse, labor with ritual, innovation with tradition. Its legacies suggest enduring lessons. Rhythmic collaboration apprentices. Chants and synchronized strikes underscore the power of shared rhythm in collaborative tasks, whether in factory assembly lines or software sprints, cultivating focus and communal alignment. Ritualized maintenance. The care rituals, resin treatments, seasonal reconditioning of tools remind us that mastery requires ongoing maintenance, akin to modern code refactoring or equipment calibration, ensuring sustainable skill over time. Adaptive innovations. Zapotec inventiveness, leveraging and pendulums demonstrates that even simple mechanical aids, thoughtfully applied, can amplify human skill, a principle as relevant to contemporary makerspace prototyping as to ancient artisans. Thought-provoking reflection. As you consider the echo of hammerstones, the patience of antler flaking, and the innovations that amplified ancient hands, reflect on this. How might our own professional disciplines, from manufacturing to the principles of rhythmic collaboration, ritualized tool care, and inventive aids to deepen both efficiency and human fulfillment in our crafts? From rough faces to inner radiance, the emergence of abrasive techniques. Dim your lights. Draw the blanket tighter, and if you're finding these slow descents into ancient practice peaceful, please like and subscribe and tell me where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we leave the echo of hammerstones behind and step into the hushed chambers where the Zapotec coaxed an inner glow from jade's green depths. In this section, you'll trace how artisans discovered the power of abrasion, first by rubbing stones together, then by refining multi-stage polishing recipes that transform dull, chipped cores into translucent pendants, scepters, and masks. Along the way, you'll learn how simple river sands became sacred media, how apprentices learned secret paste formulas, and how the slow friction of stones became a spiritual act, inviting meditative care and communal bonding around each polished masterpiece. The birth of abrasion, simple stone and stonia, early observations and experiments after repeated flaking and trimming. Jade cores left behind coarse, pitted surfaces, beautiful in color but prone to microfractures if left rough. Master carvers noticed that rubbing two jade fragments together produced fine, particulate removal. Small jade granules ground from the surfaces collected in the grooves, hinting at a potential for smoothing. Subtle sheen emergence. Over dozens of minutes, high points on each surface began to catch light more smoothly, suggesting that controlled friction could yield a glossier finish than blasting flakes. These chance observations, likely in polishing circles where apprentices idly rubbed trim chips, sparked deliberate experiments. Carvers gathered River Creek sands, varied by season and elevation, coarser sands closer to rapids, finer sands near placid pools, sandstone and schist slabs. Flat bedrocks served as polishing platforms, their own textures offering baseline abrasivity. They began by laying a thin layer of sand on a schist slab, moistening it with spring water, and rubbing a jade core back and forth. The repetitive action arm circling, wrist guiding smooths protruding bumps, visibly reducing flake scars and revealing a subdued gleam. B. Apprentices first abrasions. Novices in their third year, having mastered percussion, transitioned to abrasion drills. Stroke practice using river sand mixtures. Apprentices practiced linear strokes, 100 repetitions per side, learning to maintain constant pressure and avoid striking through. The stone's patina consistency calls. Supervisors counted strokes allowed, 100, 200, their measured cadence echoing the percussive chants of earlier stages. Reinforcing the ritual continuity from flaking to polishing. Early mistakes in even pressure causing flat spots, or over-abraded grooves taught apprentices to balance. Speed with patience. Internalizing the principle that every revolution refined both stone and spirit. 2 multi-stage polishing recipes, from coarse to translucent. The 4-tier abrasive sequence by the classic period c. 200 to 600 CE. Percussion guilds formalized a 4-stage polishing protocol, each layer unlocking deeper radiance. Rough abrasions, stage 1. Materials: coarse river sand, grain size 0.5 to 1.0, 2000 with water. Purpose: remove chisel marks and major irregularities. Duration: 2 to 4 hours per 100 G. Pendant: intermediate smoothing, stage 2. Materials: medium grit, sandstone slurry 0.2 to 0.5 millimeters. Purpose: refined surface, close micro-fissures. Duration: 4 to 6 hours. Monitored by scratch tests using fingernails. Fine polishing, stage 3. Materials: bone powder paste mixed with pine resin. Particle size 0.1 millimeters. Purpose: develop semi-gloss finish. Reveal initial translucence. Duration: overnight, with periodic cream reapplications. Seal coat, stage 4. Materials: plant gum, sealant infused with ground malachite or cinnabar for subtle color accents. Purpose: fill remaining pores. Enhance index: protects surface. Duration: 24 hours of gentle buffing with deer tendon cloths. Workshop: elders guarded precise ratios. Too much resin darkened the stone. Too little left dull patches, ensuring each pendant's finish bore the signature of its lineage. B. Ritual dimensions of polishing. Polishing transcended mere technique. It became a communal rite. Evening polishing circles. Masters and apprentices gathered under flickering lamps, passing each object in turn. As bone powder pastes glistened in the light, they chanted low invocations to Kusijo, the rain god, linking friction's slow burn to the rhythms of rainfall that nourished the jade. Mountain polish blessing ceremonies. On completion, each piece underwent a polish blessing where a priest lightly flicked polka-soaked fronds against its surface, the droplets glistening like dew and symbolically renewing the stone's connection to earth and sky. These rituals reaffirmed jade as living matter, requiring not only human skill but divine partnership in every revolution of stone and paste. III. Tool care and workshop efficiency. Abrasive media management. Maintaining abrasive quality proved essential. Sand sieving stations. Apprentices built simple woven sieves, reed frames with fine palm fiber meshistu sort river sand by grit size, ensuring consistency for each polishing. Stage slurry reconstitution. Fine powders settled quickly. Custodians stirred mixtures hourly, adding water or fresh resin to maintain ideal viscosity. Routines recorded as tally lines in bar codices dictated specific mixing times and ingredient proportions. B. Workspace. Arrangement for flow workshops optimized for polishing efficiency. Linear polishing bays for adjacent benches arranged in sequence, each dedicated to one stage. Objects moved in a conveyor belt fashion. Apprentice at stage 1 passed a neighbor at stage 2, and so on, minimizing handling delays. Drainage and cleaning protocols. Stone floors sloped toward central drains. After each polishing day, crews drained slurry into collection pits for reuse of fine sediments in later seal coats, demonstrating sustainable waste management centuries ahead of its time. Unresolved thought as you picture the slow back and forth of stone on stone, the whisper of bone powder pastes, and the communal glow of evening polishing circles under lantern light. Ponder this. In our own era of instantaneous finishes and disposable goods, what might we learn from the Zapotec's multi-stage ritual approach to polishing, where patience, material stewardship, and spiritual respect converge to create lasting beauty? You entered hushed polishing chambers where river sands, bone powders, and resin pastes coaxed Jade's inner gloritualized routines that blended craft with ceremony. Now, we broaden the scope, exploring how abrasion and polishing shaped Zapotec economic networks, structured apprentice pathways, and fostered sacred stewardship of materials. You'll trace Quartu workshop supply lines for abrasive media, witness the layered rites that bound apprentices to their lineages, polishing secrets, and see how community reverence for polished jade surfaces underpinned social order. By the end, you'll appreciate that polishing was not merely a finishing touch but a crucible for knowledge transmission, resource management, and collective IDENTITY, sourcing and managing abrasive media. river sand procurement networks. Although jade itself came from Sierra de Juarez quarries, the abrasive sands for polishing originated in distinct river systems. Monte Albán's administrators organized seasonal sand gatherers groups tasked with site selection. River bends downstream of granite outcrops yielded coarse 0.5 to 1 mm sands for stage 1 abrasion. Finer 0.2 to 0.5 mm sands came from limestone-fed tributaries. Each gathering site bore a carved boundary marker, a small greenstone, peg preventing overharvesting and inter-family disputes. Collection rituals before gathering teams performed. A water testing rite, dipping woven baskets into the current, listening for a distinct SAO that signified both purity and grain size. They then offered cornmeal to the riverbank in act, acknowledging the river spirit's role in polishing the mountains. Jade. Transport and storage. Collected sand was sun-dried on flat stony terraces, then stored in leather bags, marked with household glyphs. At the workshop docks, abrasive custodians refilled communal bins, ensuring uninterrupted polishing cycles. Bone powder and resin. Supply chains. The critical stage 3 polishing paste bone powder mixed with pine or yucca resin required. Own logistics. Bone powder production from communal butchery yards. Deer's-long bones were boiled to remove marrow, sun-dried, then pounded in stone mortar. The resulting bone meal filtered through woven reed sieves produced a powder 0.1 mm. Prized for its gentle abrasivity, resin harvesting and processing. Carvers coordinated with forest tenders, specialist gatherers who tapped pine trunks for resin. Harvesters made shallow cuts, collecting ooze in bark containers. Back at sand meadows, they gently heated resin, often with ground corn husks, to eliminate moisture and fragrant impurities, producing a clear viscous binder. Workshop confluence. Workshops featured a small paste hearth, where resin and bone powder were combined over low coals. Apprentices under master supervision measured carefully, stirring until the paste achieved a buttery consistency. Too stiff, and particles gouged. Too fluid, and polish didn't adhere. These recipes, orally transmitted, varied slightly between lineages, producing subtly distinctive glosses. Unresolved reflection as you imagine the sifting of river sands, the measured strokes across schist slabs, the hush of peer review circles, and the mindful stewardship of natural resources. Ponder this. In a world of rapid consumption and fleeting finishes, how might integrating structured apprenticeships, peer accountability, and sustainable resource rituals as the Zapotec did in their polishing mandalas reshape our relationships with material craft, environmental care, and communal responsibility? Oaths, symbols, and the path to mastery. Dim your lights and settle in gently. If you're enjoying these whispered journeys through time, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight we delve into the heart of Zapotec craft traditions, the ritual, apprenticeships that bound novices to lineage secrets, elevated families into artisan dynasties, and turned the teaching of jade carving into a sacred covenant. In this first section, you'll accompany a young initiate through the forge of vows, witness the symbolic investiture of tools, and learn how ancient oaths etched in bark and echoed in candlelit chambers shaped both individual destinies and communal identities. The forge of vows. Entering the apprentice's world. The summons and the sacred announcements in Zapotec villages. The call to apprenticeship traveled with solemnity. Each year, as the dry season waned and cooler breezes drifted down from the Sierra, temple heralds announced openings in artisan lineages. Hearken, sons and daughters of Monte Albán, by the stroke of jade and the breath of pine, the way of stone awaits new hands. Gather at dawn before the gate of glyphs, that your names may join the register of promise. Families whose children, typically aged 12 to 14, had shown careful hands or steady eyes, prepared for days of communal feasting. On the appointed dawn, initiates donned linen tunics dyed a muted ochre and carried small baskets of maize cakes, offerings both to the ancestors and to the masters, who would judge their worth. Be the register of promise. Testing worthiness. A carved stone register and oblong plaque of polished serpentine. Each candidate presented a tally of deeds, a simple list inscribed on bark, recounting acts of responsibility, tending family fields, caring for younger siblings, or assisting in local rituals. This public ledger demonstrated character and reliability. Performed the first stroke. Each candidate was given a small, inert jade flake and an antler billet. Under watchful eyes, they tapped 3 tentative blows, seeking neither power nor speed, but a gentle rhythm that respected the stone. Masters assessed posture, tool grip, and humility of strike. Those whose strokes shattered the flake or skipped wildly were gently turned aside, encouraged to try again in future seasons. Those whose taps produced crisp, even flake scars were invited forward, their names inscribed in cinnabar on the serpentine register. This blood naming marked entry into the path of jade. 2. Investiture of tools, symbols of the journey. The gift of antler and blade. Successful initiates advanced to the tool blessing chamber, a vaulted alcove lit by a single lamp. Here, masters presented each apprentice with an antler billet, carved from collected diatines and polished smooth. Billet bore incised glyphs, family emblems, and the year's solar glyph. A red ochre tassel dangled from its handle, symbolizing the flow of wisdom, a chert blade sharpened to a fine edge. This small blade was bound to a wooden haft, wrapped in green-dyed palm cord. It represented the apprentice's authority to sculpt beginnings from rough stone. Receiving these tools, apprentices sipped maize beer offered from communal vessels, an act uniting them to every carver who had walked the path before. The masters intoned, "With this antler, may you hear the stone's heartbeat. With this blade, may you draw out its soul. May your journey be true, your hands steady, and your spirit steadfast." B. The sealing of oaths. Next, apprentices made their oaths. Each knelt before a shallow basin of spring water tinted faintly green by jade dust. Dipping a finger into the water, they touched it to their lips and forehead, then pressed it onto a fresh parchment of woven palm bark. The resulting fingerprints seal a unique pattern marked their commitment to preserve lineage secrets, never to share polishing recipes, flaking platforms, or tool treatment methods outside the guild. To honor the stone's spirit by seeking permission in prayer before each new task to serve the community, teaching no fewer than 2 future apprentices, thus ensuring unbroken transmission. Masters dipped quill brushes into cinnabar and traced the fingerprint seal with a protective glyph, binding apprentice and guild with spiritual ink. This sealed parchment joined the register of promise, a permanent testament to the bond between student stone and society. 3. Early training. Foundations of skill and character. The 3 foundations. In the weeks that followed, novices focused on 3 core skills, each practiced in parallel: forging both craft and character, tool stewardship, learning to maintain billets and blades, sharpening edges on whetstones, conditioning antler handles in water, and storing tools on reed racks to prevent warping. This discipline taught responsibility for shared resources. Station rotation. Spending 2-day cycles at rough trimming benches, shaping yards, and polishing slabs, gaining holistic awareness of the jade workflow and respect for every role. Ritual. Observation. Attending evening ceremonies, firelight blessings, hymn recitations, and ancestor offerings, imprinting the spiritual dimensions of their craft. Masters evaluated novices daily, noting not only technical progress but demeanor, patience under slow abrasion, attentiveness to whispered advice, and willingness to assist older apprentices. These earliest weeks set the tone for the years to come. Unresolved thought. As you imagine the hush of the tool blessing chamber, the weight of antler and chert in a new apprentice's grip, and the solemn fingerprint seals pressed in cinnabar. Reflect on this. What might our own professional rites, graduation ceremonies, credentialing exams, or mentorship contracts gain from the Zapotec seamless weaving of technical skill, ethical commitment, and spiritual acknowledgement, ensuring that each new practitioner steps forward with purpose, humility, and accountability? You witness the solemn induction of new apprentices into Zapotec jade lineages, the register of promise, the tool blessing chamber, and the forging of oaths in cinnabar. Now you'll journey through the layered hierarchy of guild structures, discover how mentorship shaped both craft and character, and explore the broader community roles that wove apprentices into the social fabric. By the end, you'll understand how the ancient system of ritual apprenticeship sustained technical excellence, social cohesion, and cultural continuity. Guild structures. From novice to master. Zapotec jade guilds organized themselves into embedded tiers, each with distinct responsibilities, privileges, and rights. Apprentices advance through these ranks by demonstrating skill, integrity, and adherence to ritual protocol. The novice cohort, the outer ring duration, years 1 to 3, roles and responsibilities. Tool stewardship. Novices maintained common tools, antler billets, chert blades, and hammerstones, ensuring every implement was properly conditioned and stored. Workplace upkeep. They swept courtyard floors, carried water for abrasive slurries, and replenished sand bins at all polishing stages. Ritual support. In evening ceremonies, novices prepared incense, arranged reed mats, and relit lamps, learning the importance of environment and atmosphere. Mentorship and evaluation. Each novice was assigned a mentor, sibling, a seasoned journeyman who met weekly to provide technical guidance and monitor personal conduct. Mentors documented progress in a concise spark ledger, noting practice times, stroke consistency, and ritual observance. The journeyman circle. The middle ring duration, years 4 to 6, roles and responsibilities. Technique specialization. Journeyman rotated through percussion, shaping, abrasion, and polishing stations. Age rotation lasting 4 to 6 months, refining the tools and recipes introduced as novices. Quality control. Assistance. They performed preliminary inspections on work submitted by apprentices, offering corrective guidance before pieces reached master review. Logistical coordination. Journeymen scheduled material requisitions and deliveries, bone powder shipments, and resin batches, and managed small teams of novices. Mentorship and evaluation. Journeymen underwent midway assessments every 18 months. A 3-master panel observed their work: a percussion master, an abrasion master, and a ritual master, who evaluated both technique and ritual fidelity. Successful assessments earned the green stripe sash, signifying full entry into the inner guild circles. See the mastery core, the inner ring roles and responsibilities, final carving and polishing. Masters handled critical tasks, fine carving of elite commissions, and the final seal coats on Masterworks Guild administration. They convened the Council of Blades, setting annual production quotas, negotiating tribute allocations, and disputes over lineage prerogatives. Teaching and ritual oversight. Masters designed and led all induction and graduation ceremonies, ensuring each rite maintained its ritual integrity and communal significance. Privileges, exemptions from certain civic tributes, reserved seating at public festivals, and the right to display family tool altars in prime locations around Monte Albán plazas. 2. Mentorship dynamics, fostering skill and character set. 2. The apprenticeship system was the mentor-apprentice relationship, a bond formalized through ritual and sustained through daily interaction. A. The oath of guidance on the morning following the tool blessing ceremony. Each apprentice and their mentor sibling reenacted the oath of guidance at a private shrine at mentor name, pledged to shape both the hands and the hearts of my novice, guiding with patience, correcting with kindness, and exemplifying the reverence owed to Jade. And you, apprentice name, vow to listen with humility, practice with diligence, and honor the teachings that forge both stone and spirit. This mutual oath, witnessed by a small circle of masters, established accountability. If a mentor failed to teach or an apprentice dishonored the craft, both faced communal censure. B. Daily rituals and skill transmission. Morning demonstrations. Each day began with a brief demonstration. Masters showcased a single technique, flaking edge refinement, progressive stroke patterns, or polishing paste application, explaining nuances. Note how my billet sits at a 35 angle to the platform, not 30, to avoid undercut fractures. Paired practice. Apprentices practiced under direct supervision, with mentors offering immediate feedback. Your flake scar is to deep lift the billet slightly. Corrections occurred without harsh rebuke, reinforcing a culture of respectful instruction. End of day reflections. In the evening, mentors and apprentices shared a simple meal of maize porridge, sitting cross-legged before the apprentice's workstation. Mentor and novice reflected on successes, challenges, and the day's ritual observances, cementing both technical and ethical learning. 3. Community roles. Apprentices beyond the workshop apprenticeship extended into broader community functions, ensuring that guild members contributed to civic life and ritual sustainability. A festival participation, processional duties. Novices carried small, lightly polished jade discs at the front of temple processions, scattering rose petals and invoking ancestral blessings. These visible roles reinforced the apprentice's public identification with the guild and the community's recognition of their journey. Ritual music and chanting. Many apprentices learned ceremonial chants, the stone song and resin hymn performed during grinding and sealing ceremonies. These chants synchronized work rhythms and affirmed communal purpose, turning abrasive labor into sacred performance. Be familial and interlineage exchange. Home demonstrations. Apprentices returned periodically to family homes, demonstrating basic percussion or polishing methods to younger siblings or relatives. These demonstrations carried both practical benefit in sharing tool, stewardship tips, and symbolic weight, as families took pride in the apprentice's visible progression into lineage. Apprenticeship exchanges to foster innovation and communal solidarity. The Council of Blades occasionally organized exchange weeks, where apprentices trained in sister lineages for 10-day residencies. They absorbed variant polishing recipes or percussion jigs, then returned to their home guilds, enriching their lineages. Repertoires.iv. Conflict resolution and ethical oversight. Given the high-stakes secret recipes, elite commissions, and lineage reputations, the guild maintained mechanisms for addressing disputes and ethical lapses. A. The Hall of Blades tribunal jurisdiction. Cases of tool theft, recipe disclosure, or ritual negligence. Procedure. A panel of 5 masters and 2 respected elders heard testimonies, reviewed evidence, often tool marks or scribe records, and rendered verdicts. Sentences ranged from tool confiscation and public apology to, in egregious cases, removal of apprenticeship. Statusb. Restorative rites. Offending apprentices or journeymen undertook a cleansing campaign. They spent days in hermit shrines, sweeping temple grounds, repairing community structures, and publicly reciting the guild's founding myths, acts designed to restore trust and realign their actions with guild values. Unresolved reflection. As you consider the forge of vows, the mentor-apprentice oaths, the balanced mix of technical drills and community duties, reflect on this in modern professional and creative fields. How might we integrate similarly structured mentorship, public recognition of progress, and restorative accountability rituals to cultivate not only skill but also ethical, communal commitment? You walked the paths of induction rites and daily mentorship, the Forge of Vows, where novices received antler billets bound with lineage glyphs, the structured tiers from novice to journeyman to master, the communal mandalas of learning, and the roles apprentices played in festivals and civic life. Now, In this final section of Story 5, we witness the culmination of ritual apprenticeships, graduation into meticulous, the forging of dynastic lineages, and the weaving of polished jade artisans into the enduring tapestry of Zapotec culture. We'll explore the grand blade naming ceremony, the responsibilities and privileges of new masters, and how these sacred bonds ensured that each strike, each flake, and each sheen carried forward ancestral wisdom into future generations. Blade naming ceremony, sealing mastery, prelude and processional when a journeyman completed their final mastery trials demonstrating precision percussion, flawless abrasion stages, and adept ritual observance. They prepared for the blade naming ceremony. A climax of the decade-long apprenticeship, the ceremony took place at dawn in the central hall of glazed jade, its walls inlaid with masterworks and ancestral tool altars. Procession of candidates, clad in undyed linen robes, embroidered with green ochre fret patterns. Candidates walked single file behind a master carver bearing the ancestral chisel, a venerable tool rumored to have shaped the first Monte Albán pendants. Acclamation by guild and community as they entered the hall. Elders, masters, and civic leaders offered blessings of copal, smoke, and poured small streams of maize beer over a low selenite basin, invoking both craft and community. B. Naming and investiture. At the ceremony's heart, each candidate received 2 sacred gifts: the named blade, a finely balanced chert or imported obsidian blade, its handle wrapped in green ochre cord and inscribed with a personal glyph chosen by the new master, often reflecting a personal virtue or cosmic attribute, for example, steady crescent, silken dawn, the mantle of tools. A leather roll containing a set of 3 newly conditioned antler billets, each bound with tassels marking key milestones: the first chip, the green stripe sash, and the mentor's final endorsement. Upon gift presentation, the master carver intoned, "By the lineage of blades that shaped the spine of our city, I name you master's chosen name. May your hand be steady, your spirit clear, and your creations echo through time." Candidates then touched the blade's edge to a ceremonial jade disc symbolizing the union of tool and material, and received the 3-glyph seal pressed onto their robes. 3 small jade dust imprints signifying their mastery of percussion, abrasion, and polishing rights to master responsibilities and privileges. Graduation into the mastery corps conferred both honor and duty. A guardians of lineage knowledge, new masters joined the Council of Blades, a rotating body tasked with codifying innovations, documenting new tool treatments, jig designs, or polishing recipes in bark codices, or as under sealed guild oversight, overseeing initiations, training the next cohort of mentors, ensuring the forge of vows and blade naming ceremonies retained ritual rigor, adjudicating disputes, serving on panels in the Hall of Blades, tribunal to resolve ethical breaches, tool misuse, recipe leaks, or ritual negligence. B. Civic roles and economic rights. Masters received land grants, parcels adjacent to workshop terraces, enabling them to cultivate maize and maintain private resin groves, securing materials for future polishing pastes. Festival leadership, honorary roles and processions carrying masterworks like the Emerald Radiance, discs affirming their status in public memory. Market privileges, reserved stalls at the Southern Gate Market, where they sold high-tier polished goods at premium. Tribute rates, supporting both guild coffers and family welfare. *3. Dynastic continuity and cultural memory, building artisan dynasties over generations. Families of named masters maintained private tool altars displaying ancestral blades, master billets, and registry seal sites of daily hand-washing and evening prayers that connected living artisans. 2 forebears, passed down oral histories, tales of legendary masters like Silverwind, who introduced bone powder pastes, or Soft Echo, who perfected pendulum jigs and should. Each apprentice inherited a living narrative of innovation and devotion. B. Integration into broader Zapotec identity. The prominence of jade artisans shaped collective culture. Architectural homage. Neighborhood plazas often featured small jade-tiled fountains, a tribute to polishing arts, drawing villagers to pause and remember the craft's central place in daily life. Ritual festivals. Beyond the Fire Festival, a yearly stone blessing day saw families carry heirloom jade objects to village shrines, renewing apprenticeship bonds and communal respect for the earth's hidden gifts. For enduring legacies and modern resonances. Post-classic adaptations. Even as Monte Albán's political power waned, grooming of new masters continued in outlying towns, adapting rituals to local contexts. Simplified blade naming, smaller ceremonies in community courtyards preserved the core oaths and tool investitures, offering continuity amid change. Hybrid lineages, intermarriage with Mixtec and Maya artisan families, spread lineage glyphs and polishing recipes across Mesoamerica, embedding Zapotec apprenticeship models into broader regional traditions. B. Contemporary. Revivals. Today's heritage programs draw directly on ancient apprenticeship frameworks. Intergenerational workshops. Elder masters guide youth through serpentine pendants, culminating in modern blade naming ceremonies where graduates receive custom-crafted steel blades and leather tool rolls. Cultural education. Schools incorporate miniature forge of vows exercises students commit to ethics, charters before woodworking or metalsmithing, echoing ancient oaths of respect and accountability. Thought-provoking reflection as you consider the forge of vows, the blade naming ceremonies, and the dynastic lineages that wove together skill, ritual, and community. Ask yourself, how might our own educational and professional systems benefit from rites of passage that blend technical credentialing with ethical commitment and intergenerational mentorship, ensuring that each new generation inherits not just knowledge, but a living legacy of responsibility and reverence? The language of shape deciphering early iconic forms, settle and dim the lights, and draw your blanket close. If these slow explorations of ancient craft guide you toward peaceful dreams, please like and subscribe, share where you're listening from, and what time it is for you. Tonight, we turn to the heart of Zapotec funerary expression, the jade, pendants that accompanied the deceased into the netherworld. In this first section, we'll trace how early pendant shapes evolved from simple discs and bars into the rich repertoire of iconography: jaguar faces, maize stalks, celestial glyphs that communicated status, cosmology, and ancestral lineage. You'll learn how material properties shaped design choices, how workshops translated oral myth into carved form, and how small variations in proportion or incision could convey profound symbolic nuance. As the first chapter closes, ponder how these silent stones spoke volumes about life, death, and the world beyond. Origins in simplicity, discs, bars, and the emergence of meaning. The disc: cosmic unity and solar illusion. The most ubiquitous early form was the jadeite disc, a flat, circular pendant ranging from 5 to 15 centimeters in diameter and 3 to 8 millimeters in thickness. Its popularity owes much to both material practicality and symbolic resonance. Material considerations: discs minimized waste when splitting a nodule along its natural foliation planes. After rough trimming and flake removal, carvers used rotary drilling across opposing points and controlled abrasion to establish perfect roundness, an efficient path to maximal surface area. Symbolic associations: the circle in Zapotec cosmology represented the cyclical nature of day and night, life and death. During funerary ceremonies, discs were positioned over the deceased's heart, aligning the celestial and mortal centers. Some disc pendants show faint concentric incisions on their reverses, ogres of solar suggesting the wearer would journey with the sun through underworld passages. Variants and gradations: early discs bore minimal disc surfaces meant to reflect torchlight. By the classic period, subtle rim notches, 8 small incisions spaced evenly, appeared, perhaps marking cardinal directions or linking to calendrical counts, transforming simple discs into cosmographic tools guiding the soul's orientation. B. The bar or axe form liminal tools and threshold markers parallel to discs. The bar pendant, also called the axe form for its subtle taper, emerged, typically 10 to 20 centimeters long and 4 to 6 millimeters thick. Functional origins: bars aligned with the direction of jade's cleavage planes, facilitating clean splits. Their elongated shapes required less polishing in cross-grain directions, economizing labor while yielding elegant forms. Iconic interpretations: scholars suggest bar pendants symbolized liminal tools, axes or blades, alive with transformative power. As funerary offerings, they might represent the deceased's ability to cut through the threshold between worlds. Some bars bear faint lateral grooves near one end, carved post-polishing, evocative of binding straps or stylized haft impressions, reinforcing the metaphor of a carried tool. Ritual placement: in tombs, bar pendants were often placed at the feet or alongside the coffin's long axis, as if marking a spiritual walkway. Their orientation, headward or footward, may have signified directional guidance, though precise rules likely varied by lineage. 2. The flourishing of figuration: jaguars, maize, and celestial glyphs. By the height of Monte Albán's influence, c. 300 to 700 CE, pendant shapes transcended abstract forms, embracing finely carved imagery drawn from myth and environmenta. The jaguar's strength, sovereignty, and underworld steeds. Arguably the most potent icon was the jaguar face pendant, a richly detailed carving, typically 8 to 12 centimeters across. Design elements: eyes and whiskers, deep-set elliptical eyes, achieved through controlled depth flaking and fine chiseling, conveyed a watchful intensity. Shallow incisions radiating from muzzle pods represented whiskers, each stroke aligned with polishing grooves to create subtle relief. Ear folds and spots, billet tapping, sculpted rounded ears, shallow depressions on cheeks. Boar dot patterns, either naturalistic rosettes or stylized clan emblems. Mythic associations: in Zapotec belief, jaguars served as psychopomp animals, guiding souls through underworld caverns to the afterlife. Wearing jaguar pendants at death thus invoked protection for the newly liberated spirit, while in life such pendants conferred strength and legitimacy upon rulers who styled themselves as jaguar lords. Variations in lineage signatures: subtle shape differences, length of muzzle, curvature of ear tips denoted workshop or familial signature. One lineage favored triangular ear proportions, another emphasized flattened muzzles. Such variations, legible only to trained eyes, ensured that pendants carried embedded identity markers alongside universal symbolism. B. Maize stalks and ear motifs. Fertility, renewal, and sustenance. Another prominent motif featured stylized maize ears, either as slender pendants shaped like corn kernels or relief carvings on disc and bar bases. Rapid prototyping from core. Maize forms exploited jade's natural veining, pale streaks tracing through green cores echoed tassels, guiding carvers in incising kernel outlines. Early artisans simply polished raw kernel shapes. Over time, they added fine detail incised kernels, subtle leaf folds using antler point drill taps. Fertility and agricultural cycles. Maize, as life's staple, symbolized renewal and rebirth. Funerary maize pendants suggested that the deceased would partake in endless harvest cycles beyond death. Some pendants include tiny drilled holes at stalk bases, implying they were bound to leaf-woven mats, possibly laid over the coffin's floor like a ceremonial field. Seasonal counterpoint in tomb chambers. Maize pendants, sometimes paired with solar discs, flanked by sun, encapsulating the dual forces of life, nurturing rain and sun's energy. These paired iconographies mapped the deceased's cosmic journey from underworld, seed, to skyborn spirit. C. Celestial glyph stars, moons, and the cosmic mandala beyond, natural creatures and crops. Pendants displayed abstract glyphs referencing celestial phenomena, star patterns, small, pitted depressions, polished to sparkle, arranged in cross-like or circular. Arrays represented key constellations or star clusters. Carvers achieved these by fine drilling and gentle polishing, ensuring each pit caught candlelight distinctly. Crescent moons in eclipse. Marks crescent shapes carved in lateral notches bore faint polished rims, standing out against matte fields. Some pendants show paired crescents, full and waning moons invoking lunar cycles, essential to calculating festival dates. Cosmic mandala discs, a rare form, combined concentric rings with radial glyphstein notches or drilled dots indicating cardinal directions. These mandala discs, often over 12 centimeters wide, served as portable cosmic. Their surfaces, carefully leveled and finely polished, reflected torchlight in ringed patterns, evoking the ordered cosmos, though fewer in number. Cosmic mandalas underscore the pendant's role as both personal amulet and miniature temple, microcosmic representations of the universe the soul would inhabit. 3. Workshop translation. From myth to stone. Design transmission workshop. Scribes and master carvers collaborated to translate oral myth into carving templates. Bark sketches. Masters sketched pendant designs in charcoal on palmbark sheets, each sketch annotated with stroke counts, abrasive, stage notes, and polish recipes, ensuring consistency across apprentices and guild houses. Wooden templates. For common shapes, jaguar faces. Maize ears. Carvers fashioned thin wooden templates, pressed onto jade cores to mark tool lines. These templates survived through apprenticeships, inherited like sacred relics. B. Material constraints and creative solutions. J.S. Toughness and translucence demanded design adjustments. Scale proportions. Fine features. Whiskers. Kernels not be too deep or they risked microfractures. Masters advised limiting incision depths to 1/3 the pendant's thickness, balancing visibility and structural integrity. Translucence considerations. Areas intended to glow, celestial pits or inner ridges, were kept uniform in thickness to avoid dark patches. Carvers measured thickness with simple calipers made of reed and carved wood, ensuring light transmission. Remained even unresolved question as you imagine bark sketches pressed against jade cores. The soft rhythms of drill taps carving kernel outlines, and the glow of candlelight in each star pit depression. Reflect on this. How might our own design processes, whether in digital interfaces, architectural plans, or printed graphics, benefit from a similar marriage of material constraints, symbolic richness, and iterative templates that honor both functionality and deeper meaning? You explored how the simple disc and bar forms of early pendants evolved into richly symbolic jade carvings, jaguar faces, maize ears, celestial mandalas, each shape balancing material constraints with profound meaning. Now, we delve into the workshop practices that brought these forms to life, examine how lineages introduced stylistic variations, and see how pendants were ritually positioned in burial contexts to guide the soul's journey. Workshop practices from design to finished pendant. Design briefing and material selection. Client consultation for funerary commissions. Families or temple priests presented an icon request, a verbal or bark-inscribed brief specifying desired symbol, for example, jaguar protector, maze of renewal, night stars. Masters reviewed the brief alongside available jade core, selecting stones whose natural color veining complemented the intended design. Template transfer. Once a suitable core was chosen, apprentices affixed the wooden template with the chosen icon onto the stone face, securing it with beeswax dots. They traced the outline in red ochre, providing a clear guide for percussion and flaking. Sequential carving workflow of outline percussive flaking. following the traced lines. Carvers used hammerstones to remove bulk matrix around the icons. Silhouette apprentices worked under the master's supervision, ensuring that initial forms remained faithful to the template's proportions refined. Shaping antler billet. Antler billets chipped closer to the final outline, defining jawlines. Kernel edges, or crescent curves. Masters demonstrated on a reference piece, then observed apprentices emulating graduated billet strikes for crisp edges. Detail carving obsidian or bronze tools. Once main shapes emerged. Fine chisels and blades incised features jaguar whiskers. Maze, kernel, pits, star clusters, lineage-specific motifs, such as a three-dot eyebrow pattern unique to certain clans, were stamped using tiny bone punches. Multi-stage polishing, following the rigorous four-stage abrasion protocol. Pendants, to achieve the requisite sheen. Special attention was given to smoothing incision edges, preventing light scattering microfractures around delicate details. 2. Lineage variations. Subtle signatures of style different artisan families while adhering to core techniques and personal or regional flourishes into pendant iconography. A. The red edge. Lineage signature trait. A narrow band of faint cinnabar polish applied to incised rims, highlighting edges in warm red contrast to green. Symbolic note. Evoked dawn's first light on Jade Hills, marking the boundary between underworld and living world. Identification, seen on discs with cardinal notches and jaguar masks with red-tinged whiskers. Known from family codices as the blood of renewal, TECHNIQUEB, the deep groove school signature. Trait, slightly deeper flake scars in recessed areas such as maze, kernel pits, or star pit. Depressions to enhance shadow play under flickering lamp. Symbolic note, intended to suggest the depth of night or the furrows between cornrows and dualities of dark and light. Death and rebirth identification, common on celestial mandala. Discs and dual crescent bars from the southern valleys. See the soft low workshop signature trait. Use of extra bone resin paste proportion. 1.5 standard in stage 3, yielding a warmer, semi-opaque gloss reminiscent of sunlit jade. Symbolic note, meant to reflect the wearer's inner virtue. Cool yet radiant, a quality prized in spiritual intermediaries. Identification, noted on masks found in the East Plaza tombs, often accompanying clan emblems carved on reverse sides. 3. Ritual placement. Positioning pendants in the underworld journey. The heart pendant shape and symbol, jaguar face or cosmic disc placed over the chest cavity, secured by linen cords. Ritual function, guard the soul's essence, enabling clarity of vision in underworld trials. Placement rites, priests anointed the pendants reverse with oil grooved and ancestral glyphs, declaring, "May your heart beat in harmony with the jade's silent pulse." B. The pathway markers, shape and symbol. Bar pendants laid at foot and head ends of the coffin. Ritual function, demarcate spiritual threshold. Head pendant, guiding beginning of journey. Foot pendant, ensuring safe arrival. Placement rites, each bar was dusted with sacred ground maize before placement, invoking fertility's path as the soul voyages. C. The companion pendants, shape and symbol. Paired mazer or starpit pendants, positioned at shoulder niches. Ritual function, offer sustenance and celestial guidance, acknowledging the dual needs of nourishment and direction. Placement rites. Small bowls of ceremonial maize beer were emptied into cedarwood vessels placed alongside these pendants, inviting ancestral spirits to share in the feast unresolved. Reflection as you envision the careful tracing of templates, the lineage-specific rouge of cinnabar rims, and the silent placement of pendants around the tomb's inhabitant. Reflect on this. How might our own commemorative practices, whether monuments, digital memorials, or community rituals, benefit from such layered symbolism, personalized craftsmanship, and intentional placement, ensuring that what we leave behind resonates with both functional purpose and deep shared meaning? You trace the evolution of jade pendants from simple discs and bars into powerful carriers of Zapotec cosmology, jaguar guardians, maze of renewal, and celestial mandala, each shaped in ritualized workshop practices and distinguished by lineage signatures. Now, in this concluding chapter of Story 6, we follow these masterworks into the tomb, witness the funerary culmination of their symbolism, and explore how their forms and meanings have endured, shaping post-classic traditions, colonial encounters, and contemporary cultural revival. Ultimately, we'll reflect on how these silent stones continue to speak across centuries, inspiring questions about memory, materiality, and the shared human urge to craft significance into objects. Funerary culmination, pendants in the tombs, the interment sequence when a Zapotec elite passed beyond life, be they dynastic ruler, high priest, or honored patron. Their burial followed a carefully choreographed ritual sequence in which jade pendants played starring roles. Preparation of the chamber, days before interment. Temple artisans cleansed the tomb chamber with copal smoke and lined its walls with woven textile hangings dyed deep crimson. Niches and ledges were swept free of debris, and small oil lamps lit an even glow to guide the soul's first steps. dressing the deceased. The body, wrapped in fine cotton and adorned with a headdress of braided reeds and painted glyphs, received its first pendant, the heart disc or jaguar masks, placed directly over the chest or face. Each pendant was tied with linen cords infused with scented oils, ensuring it remained secure yet symbolically free to accompany the spirit. Strategic placement of companion pendants. Bar pendants, mizira, and star disc talismans were laid in planned sequence. Bar pendants at head and feet marked cosmic thresholds. Maze pendants at shoulders symbolized nourishment. Celestial mandalas on the tomb floor under the coffin served as cosmic maps, guiding the soul through underworld realms. Libation and sealing. After placement, priests poured maize beer into small stone bowls set beside each pendant, invoking the continuation of communal feasts in the other world. The chamber's entrance was then sealed with beeswax ochre paste, a lip seal mirroring the final polishing seal coats, safeguarding both the living and the dead. B. The soul's journey embodied in the silent darkness. Each pendant's form and gloss became instrumental in the soul's voyage. Jaguar masks offered protection and strength, their deep polished eyes seeing dangers ahead. Mizia pendants served as spiritual sustenance, ensuring the soul would not hunger in the subterranean passing. Stardisc mandalas acted as cosmic compasses, the polished rings reflecting the torchlight of spirit guides. While silent to earthly ears, the pendant's ritual choreography spoke volumes to those who shaped and placed them, affirming that form, finish, and placement combined to craft an embodied map for life beyond. DEATHII. Post-classic transformations and colonial encounters. Adaptations in the post-classic era. With Monte Albán's political decline around the 9th-10th century CE, the rites surrounding jade pendants transformed. Material substitution. Scarcity of Sierra jade prompted use of serpentine, green obsidian, and local limestones, bearing similar shapes but varied translucent. The disc and bar forms persisted, though richly figurative pendants waned in number. Shrinking ritual scale. Elaborate multi-pendant burials gave way to single-disc interments or corn-husk-wrapped figurines, reflecting both resource constraints and shifting spiritual emphases toward agricultural renewal rather than cosmographic navigation. Continuity of symbolic vocabulary, even with new materials. Workshops retained jaguar maze and solo motifs, evidence of the deep shapes head-on collective memory. B. Spanish colonial observations. Early 16th century Spanish chroniclers, arriving amid the Aztec and Mixtec collapses, recorded market scenes. Spanish merchants in Oaxaca noted green stones sold at local markets, mistakenly likening them to Venetian glass beads. Priestly curiosities. Franciscan friars described indigenous funerary objects, green discs laid on chests, but failed to grasp their iconographic complexity, reducing them to pagan trinkets. Despite these misinterpretations, colonial documents carried fragments of Zapotec funeral practices into the written record. Later scholars pieced these accounts back together, rediscovering the maps of meaning etched in jade form. 3. Modern rediscovery and cultural revival. Archaeological reclamation. 19th and 20th century excavations at Monte Albán and surrounding valley sites unearthed complete pendant assemblages, carefully preserved in dry tombs. Jade masks and maze pendants offered unprecedented insight into workshop techniques, flake scar analysis, and polished patterns confirming ancient protocols. Bark caducees and tool altars in rare survival cases. Slightly charred bark notebooks and collapsed tool racks gave glimpses of lineage practices and apprenticeship oaths, textual complements to the material artifacts. These finds fueled museum exhibitions, first in Mexico City, then international. Jade pendants as paramount witnesses to pre-Hispanic artistry and spirituality. Tied heritage programs in recent decades. Zapotec and broader Oaxacan communities have spearheaded revival efforts. Living workshops, artisan centers in the Sierra de Juarez train local youth to carve serpentine pendants in classic shapes, jaguar faces, maze ears, and encourage research into reconstructing stage 3 bone resin pastes. Funerary reenactment festivals. Annual events reenact the interment sequence, complete with pendant placement and libations, honoring ancestors and educating visitors about Zapotec cosmology. Educational curricula. Local schools incorporate units on pendant iconography, linking ancient shapes to modern identity and fostering pride in ancestral knowledge. For reflective resonance, form meaning in our own legacies, from the hush of workshop sketches to the candlelit unveiling in salt-sealed tombs. Zapotec jade pendants embody a profound interplay of material, symbol, and ritual. Their legacy prompts us to consider how shapes convey stories. A simple disc or bar acquires layered meanings through context, finish, and placement, reminding us to mindfully design our own symbols. The power of craft rituals, apprentice oaths, Polish mandalas, and burial placements fuse technical skill with spiritual intent, suggesting that our best work may emerge from aligning process with purpose. Enduring cultural echoes. Despite political upheavals and material substitutions, pendant forms remained touchstones of identity and enduring testament to the human impulse to create objects that bridge life, death, and collective memory. Thought-provoking reflection. As you rest with these stories of carved jaguars, polished maziers, and luminous cosmic discs, consider what symbols and objects might we craft or preserve today through our art, technology, or community rituals that will speak meaningfully to future generations, guiding them as these ancient pendants guided souls through the unseen realms. The architecture of memory integrating jade into burial furnishings. Settle deeper into your pillow, dim the lights to a soft glow, and if these whispered histories are lulling you toward peaceful rest, please like and subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're joining from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we transition from individual pendants to the broader material world of the tomb. The jade-adorned furnishings, coffins, altar tables, and reliquary boxes that surrounded the deceased and shaped the funerary space itself. In this first section, we'll explore how jade elements were integrated architecturally into burial chambers, how artisans balanced structural function with symbolic resonance, and how each piece, whether a lacquered wooden bier with jade inlay or a stone canopy studded with jade tesserae, created a sanctified domestic theater for the dead. As you drift through these silent burial halls, consider how objects we leave behind frame the memories we hope to preserve. Tomb layout and the role of furnishings, chamber design and spatial hierarchy. Elite Zapotec tombs, especially under the East Plaza, followed a consistent spatial arrangement. Antechamber, a narrow entry vestibule where preliminary offerings, ceramic vessels, textile bundles, and small jade talismans lay arrayed. Main ossuary room, central space for the coffin or sarcophagus, often sunken into the floor to create a pit lined with masonry. Altar niche, a raised platform or carved recess at the room's far wall, housing ritual implements, larger jade objects, and occasional barcodes. Within this layout, jade furnishings served both functional and symbolic roles, guiding the ritual flow from entry to altar, marking transitional thresholds, and framing the deceased at the chamber's heart. Core. Jade-enhanced furnishings, jade-inlaid coffins and biers. Construction. Coffins crafted from sturdy pine or cypress planks, bound with cord and coated in red doka lacquer. Bronze nails affixed rows of small jade cubes, 2 to 3 centimeter sides along the coffin rim and footboard, creating a shimmering border. Symbolism. The jade edging mirrored protective fortifications, sealing the body within a luminous threshold. Biers. Resting frames used during funerary processions bore similar inlays on their crossbars, ensuring continuity between life's final journey and burial sanctum. Altar tables with jade tesserae design. Low wooden tables supported by carved legs, resembling maize stalks, featured tabletops inset with grids of polished jade tesserae 1 centimeter squares, laid in alternating light and dark shades to suggest cosmic maps. Function. These altars held offerings through incense burners, libation bowls positioned before the sarcophagus, and their jade surfaces lent a ritual brightness under lamplight, transforming meal remnants into ethereal echoes of communal feasts. Reliquary boxes and cache. Containers form small boxes 20 to 30 centimeters wide, constructed from cedar, their lids inlaid with central jade discs or mandala motifs. Interior walls sometimes lined with thin jade panels cut to fit. Purpose. Housing sacred objects, ancestor bones, ritual scrolls, personal seals. These boxes safeguarded intimate items. Their polished jade exteriors marked them as repositories of memory, imbuing their contents with jade's enduring vitality. 2. Workshop coordination. From object to integrated design planning. Coordinating multiple jade furnishings within a single tomb required meticulous planning. Master architect briefing. A chief designer, a master carver with architectural experience, drafted a layout sketch on pombar, indicating furniture placement relative to sarcophagus orientation and light sources, oils, lamps, window shafts. Material allocation. The tomb's jade allotment determined by family status and tribute. Quotas was divided among furnishings: 30% for coffin inlays, 40% for altar tesserae, 20% for reliquary boxes, and 10% reserved for extras. Sequenced production. Workshops produced furnishings in parallel lanes. Coffin inlays kilcured first to seal lacquer, tesserae cut and polished next, and box panels refined last, ensuring timely assembly and coherent aesthetic across pieces. Ritualized fabrication and installation. The creation and placement of jade furnishings involved ritual milestones, tile blessing ceremonies. Before inlays, artisans arrayed jade cubes on reed mats, and priests invoked moisture deities to ensure color unity, sprinkling dew-collected water over the tiles. Coffin commissioning rite. During barrel hoop binding of coffin planks, family elders pressed clay impressions of jade cube patterns into workshop walls, a symbolic seal reminding carvers of their charge. Chamber installation ceremony. On the eve of interment, carpenters and carvers, bearing trays of tesserae and inlay tools, entered the sealed chamber in candlelit procession. They affixed furnishings while priests chanted invocations, culminating in the lighting of an eternal lamp before the completed altar unresolved. Reflection as you picture jade cubes catching lamplight on coffin rims, tesserae maps, guiding offerings, on altar tables, and reliquary boxes gleaming under ritual hush. Reflect on this. How do the objects and spaces we design for remembrance, whether headstones, memorial plaques, or digital archives, shape the wake of memory we leave behind? And what might we learn from these ancient ensembles about integrating material beauty, functional purpose, and sacred intention? You entered the silent halls of elite tombs, observing how jade-inlaid coffins, tessellated altar tables, and reliquary boxes shaped sacred spaces for the departed. Now, you'll explore the broader material economy and social collaborations that made these furnishings possible, from quarry to chamber, and see how communities across the Zapotec world contributed to and were transformed by the production of funerary assemblages. You'll follow the flows of tribute jade and lacquered timber, examine the cooperative workshops that combined woodworkers, lacquer specialists, and jade carvers, and learn how village networks supplied food, textiles, and ritual service in exchange for funerary prestige. As this section closes, you'll face questions about how our own communities mobilize collective resources to honor the dead, and what social bonds are woven through the objects we build. Tribute flows and resource mobilization, AJD allocation, and political economy lead status and tribute rates. Tomb assemblages consumed prodigious amounts of jade. A high-ranking lineage owed the state a yearly tribute of 100 to 150 kilograms of raw jadeite. Of that, roughly 60% was reserved for funerary furnishings, reflecting the importance of death rites in sustaining social order. Redistribution networks. Central authorities redistributed tribute jade to artisans via the Council of Blades, ensuring that tomb commissions did not rely solely on local petty caches. This centralized allocation reinforced the polity's power, controlling both life's rhythms and death's final ceremonies. Value exchange. In return for furnishing tombs, lineages received exemptions on land taxes and priority access to communal irrigation systems. This reciprocal economy bound political elites, artisans, and peasant communities in a cycle of obligation and REWARDB, timber, lacquer, and secondary materials with procurement, coffins, altars, and reliance boxes required. Fine-grained wood, cypress, pine, cedar harvested from upland groves. Temple foresters managed these trees sustainably, marking rotation zones and replanting sites to ensure future supplies. Lacquer production. Lacquer derived from the sap of wild sumac trees went a multi-day refinement, soaking, sedimentation, and slow boiling. Lacquer artisans, often women organized in separate guilds, produced batches dyed red with cochineal or black with soot, providing both protective coating and symbolic color for coffins and furniture. Complementary crafts. Metal workers supplied bronze nails and tacks. Weavers delivered fine cotton textiles for coffin linings. Potters contributed vessels for offering food. This interdependence wove funerary production into a broader artisan ecosystem, amplifying local economies. Collaborative workshop complexes, integrated craft clusters rather than isolated silos. Funerary furnishings emerged from craft clusters, adjacent workshops where specialists collaborated. Woodworking yards, carpenters rough-cut planks, shaped coffin panels, and carved altar legs into maze and jaguar forms. Their yards adjoined jade trimming benches so carvers could assess inlay fits on wooden surfaces directly. Lacquer studios next door. Lacquer wells, stone-lined pits held sap mixtures. After application, coated panels hung on reed racks to cure in shaded rooms, ensuring even drying before inlay work commenced. Jade inlay stations. Final assembly occurred under reed-thatched shelters. Carvers, joined by carpenters, affixed jade cubes into pre-cut wooden channels, sealing them with resin adhesives. Apprentices choreographed material handoffs, maintaining clean surfaces critical for strong adhesion. Apprenticeship across disciplines. Young trainees often rotated between these specialties. Woodcraft novices learned tool stewardship in carpentry yards before spending time in jade inlay, understanding how wood expansion could affect stone fit. Lacquer apprentices gained insight into jade polishing to anticipate how adhesion resins would interact with polished surfaces. Jade trainees what observed woodworking and lacquer sequences to time their inlay work for optimal setting conditions. These cross-disciplinary experiences fostered empathy and coordination, ensuring that each guild respected the constraints and rhythms of the others. Village support and ritual service. Food and textile contributes in large funerary projects often enlisted village communities in supporting roles. Feast preparation. Outsiders lifted from fields journeyed to Monte Albán to cook maize tamales, brew pulque, and bake cassava breads. Day-long inlay sessions and nighttime ritual vigils. Textile weavers. Houses in nearby hamlets produced fine cotton shrouds and red mats embroidered with clan glyphs. These textiles wrapped coffins, lined reliquary boxes, and draped altar tables, linking portable wealth with communal artistry. Contributions were recognized with feast token small jade or shell beads distributed by the commissioning lineage, granting villagers privileged seating at the tombs, closing ceremonies and occasional surplus grain rations. B. Ritual attendants and mortuary specialists. Certain community members held hereditary roles as funerary attendants, ancestral priests, lead closing rites, smoking incense, reciting lineage histories, and sealing the tomb's entrance. Music guilds provided flute and drum accompaniment during processions, their rhythms calibrated to accompany the lowering of coffins into pit chambers. Guardians of the seals. Young apprentices tasked with applying and inspecting lacquer lip seals around chamber entrances, preventing premature disturbance. These specialists, often exempted from corvée labor, exemplified how funerary production extended social status to non-elite participants, reinforcing collective investment in mortuary culture. Unresolved point. You imagine the coordinated bustle of woodworkers, lacquerers, and jade inlayers sharing workshops, the mountain groves and river sands feeding their labor, and the villagers supplying feasts and melodies that framed each ceremony. Reflect on this. How do our own large-scale commemorative projects, whether cathedral building, memorial design, or digital archiving, rely on complex webs of collaboration, resource sharing, and ritual service? And what lessons can we draw from the Zapotec's integrated model to honor the dead with both material excellence and communal care? You walked the threshold between life and death in Monte Albán's tombs. You saw jade-inlaid coffins glitter beneath torchlight, mosaic altar tables guiding offerings, reliquary boxes safeguarding sacred remnants, and the vast networks of woodworkers, lacquerers, carvers, and villagers whose combined labor wove these funerary theaters. Now, in this final section of Story 7, we witness the closing of the tomb's drama, how sealing rites finalized the sacred space, how communities remembered the departed through subsequent generations, and how the legacy of these funerary furnishings continues to inform our understanding of memory, materiality, and collective care. The final rites, sealing the chamber and invoking the lip seal ceremony. Following the placement of all furnishings, the tomb's entrance underwent the lip seal ceremony, a ritual mirroring both the polishing seal coats and the boundary mark in bar pendants. Application of sealing paste. Priests and master lacquerers together mixed a final batch of sumac lacquer with red ochre pigment and ground jade dust, producing a paste that matched both coffin inlays and altar hues. With broad brushes carved from deer tendon, they painted a continuous band around the lintel and door jambs, sealing the passage against both physical intrusion and spiritual confusion. Immolation of offerings. Small trays of ritual foods, cornmeal, cakes, beans, dried chilies, were ignited with pine resin torches at the threshold. The fragrant smoke curled into the chamber, believed to carry the family's prayers to the deceased and to linger as a protective veil. Chant of final departure. As the last lamp was lowered, ancestral priests chanted the song of echoed steps, calling upon the departed to follow the jade-laden path laid before them. The pitch rose and fell in undulating phrases, mimicking the river's gentle pulse and reminding all witnesses that the living and dead shared a continuous current of remembrance. B. Communal mourning and remembering. After the physical sealing, funerary care extended into months of communal activities. Feast of the Second Moon. 40 days later, a time corresponding to the moon's return to its initial phase, families and community members reconvened at the tomb's antechamber. They carried small polishing slabs and bone resin pouches, touching them to the jade furnishings through slender viewing apertures. This tactile reaffirmation of ties reinforced the belief that memory, like stone, could be both enduring and renewed. Through ritual touch. Anniversary processions. Each year on the death date, villagers paraded miniature replicas of the tomb's furnishings, tiny painted coffins, miniature tesserae panels through the living quarters plazas. These processions, led by funerary attendants and music guild members, kept the departed woven into civic life long after their tombs had settled into silence. 2. Enduring significance. From ruin to revival. Archaeological rediscovery and interpretation. Later, colonial neglect left many tombs undisturbed, making Monte Albán a time capsule of funerary art. Modern archaeologists uncovered these sanctuaries, piecing together the interplay of coffin inlays, tessellated altars, and reliquary boxes. Their work illuminated not only technical protocols but the social choreography behind them. Tribute flows, workshop cooperatives, and communal rituals of memory. B. Contemporary resonances. Today, the echoes of these funerary practices inform both cultural identity and modern craft. Museum exhibitions and virtual reconstructions. Visitors to Oaxaca's museums now encounter life-size reconstructions of tomb chambers, digitally rendering the flicker of lamps on jade inlays, immersive experiences that connect contemporary audiences to ancient rites. Community-led memorial arts inspired by ancestral models. Oaxacan artisans create contemporary memorial objects, wooden coffers inlaid with local greenstones, mosaic altars for family shrines, and wearable reliquaries for loved one. Commemorative tokens blending ancient form with modern function. Thought-provoking reflection. Thought-provoking reflection as you rest with the image of sealed chambers and ritual feasts. Bear in mind that every culture crafts its own architecture of memory through objects, spaces, and shared rites. In considering how jade-inlaid tombs articulated communal care, what will be the furnishings of remembrance that your own community erects, whether digital archives, public memorials, or keepsake objects to honor those who pass beyond our reach? From earth and bone, the alchemy of color and bond, welcome back. Dim the lights, draw your blanket tight, and let the quiet hum of ancient practices guide your thoughts toward rest. If these gentle explorations bring you comfort, please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight we enter a hidden realm of Zapotec craft, the secret alchemy by which pigments and sealants ground from earth, bone, plant, and resin transform plain jade, wood, and stone into luminous surfaces imbued with both beauty and ritual potency. In this first section, we'll trace the discovery of core materials, the layered recipes that balanced hue and adhesion, and the ritualized protocols that governed their mixing and application. As you drift through these scented workshops, consider how the ancient marriage of chemistry and ceremony shaped objects intended to last both centuries and the journey beyond death. Foundational materials. Earth's palette and animal mineral pigments: red, green, black, and white. Red ochre hematite source. Nodule veins in riverbed sediments near Sierra foothills yielded rich red ochre concretions. Prospectors broke them with hammerstones, revealing deep crimson powder. Preparation: artisans dried the ochre in low hearth embers, then ground it on sandstone slabs with water into a smooth paste. Coarser grit was decanted off, leaving a silky pigment that resisted flaking. Symbolism and use. Red ochre signified life's blood, dawn's promise, and protective energy. It served as both a standalone surface color on coffin interiors, ritual stele, and as a dye component for tanning leather straps, used in pendant bindings. 2. Green earth, celadonite source, soft green clay outcrops near tributary banks, visible as mossy green seams in shale beds. Preparation: gatherers scooped clay into leather pouches, sun-dried it to reduce moisture, then pulverized it with wooden pestles. The resulting fine green earth mixed with bone powder pastes produced subtle verdant tints on seal coats echoing jade's own hue. Symbolism and use. Green earth evoked renewal and harmony, applied as thin washes on wooden reliquaries or altar legs. It linked secondary furnishings back to the central jade forms. 3. Soot, black charcoal, and lamp soot. Source: accumulated deposits of lamp soot in workshop nooks, combined with charcoal from pine resin fires. Preparation: collected soot was pressed into cakes, then ground with water to produce a deep, glossy black ink, mixed into sealant pastes. It accentuated carved glyphs and filled microcracks on jade discs. Symbolism and use. Black represented the underworld and the night sky. Its use on tomb fittings acknowledged the domain of the dead and emphasized cosmic cycles. 4. White kaolin clay source. Riverbank clay terraces. Preparation: kaolin was washed repeatedly to remove sand, then dried and milled into the finest powder. Symbolism and use. White signified purification and liminal thresholds. Traces of kaolin lined the insides of reliquary boxes, offering a bright counterpoint to jade's green, and enhancing the perception of inner light during ritual openings. *B. Organic binders and sealants: resin, fat, and bone. 1. Pine resin, sumac, and fir harvest. Forest tenders tapped sumac trees in early spring, collecting viscous sap in bark cups. Purification: sap was gently heated over low coals, allowing moisture to evaporate and impurities to settle. Clear resin was decanted, then mixed with crushed pine needles to impart mild antiseptic properties, protecting wooden furnishings from insect damage. 2. Animal fat, deer and llama *** source. Butchery. Byproducts: deer and llama fat were rendered down into oils. Preparation: fat was slowly heated with crushed corn husks, filtering liquids through woven reed mats. The oil remained semi-solid at room temperature, ideal for softening seal coats and increasing flexibility. 3. Bone powder, deer and fish. *** source. Communal butchery remnants. Deer long bones and large fish vertebrae provided raw material. Preparation: boiled to remove organics. Bones were sun-dried, then pounded in stone mortar. Graduated sieving yielded powders of varying fineness, from 0.5 mm grit for mid-stage abrasion to sub 0.1 mm dust for seal coats. Symbolism: bone powder carried ancestral potency. Its inclusion in sealants bound living craftspeople to their forebears, ensuring continuity of lineage spirit within each polished surface. *2. Layered recipes, balancing hue, adhesion, and durabilities. Peck artisans codified multi-stage varnish and paint recipes. Oral texts, kept in bark codices, each tailored to object type and symbolic purpose. A standard polishing seal: jade and stone. *** formula by weight: 60% purified pine resin to 5% bone powder, 0.1 mm, 10% deer fat oil, 5% green earth powder. For hue matching protocol: heat resin and fat until coalesced. Stir in bone powder until homogeneous, then whisk in green earth. Apply with deer tendon cloth in thin coats, buffing between layers to embed filler into micropores. Final coat dried for 24 hours under gentle airflow. B. Protective lacquer wooden furnishings, *** formula. 70% sumac resin, 15%, fine kaolin clay, 10%, charcoal soot, ink, 5%, plant gum for flexibility protocol. Warm resin, incorporate clay and soot, add dissolved plant gum as a brush onto furniture in 3 coats, each lightly torched to cure, yielding a durable, water-resistant finish with deep black or red undertones. C. Pigment paint, ceramic and textile accents, *** red oak roche, 80% red ochre, 20% deer fat oil, used to tint textile bindings and rim pottery offering vessels. White, highlight paste, 90% kaolin, 10% plant gum, applied to emphasize carved glyphs on reliquaries. 3. Ritual protocols, mixing as set. Seasonal resin conclave, ***. Each spring, resin guild members held a conclave of sap, where freshly tapped resin underwent communal purification. Priests invoked mountain spirits, reciting by sap's flow and stone's glow. May these gifts bind form and faith, preserving both craft and cosmos. Participants dipped hands into heated vats, symbolically merging their lifeblood with material lifeblood, reaffirming collective guardianship over workshop supplies. Bone powder blessing, ***, bone powder bearing, ancestral energy, a cleansing rite. Gathered under moonlight, custodians spread powder on red mats, then passed it through incense smoke. This sanctified the material, ensuring that every polishing seal carried ancestral memory into object surfaces. C. Paint and seal application ceremonies, ***, in final workshops. Once recipes completed, offering of ingredients, small bowls of raw pigments, and binders were presented before a shrine statuette, often a jade figurine, before mixing. First stir invocation. The lead artisan, wielding a deer antler whisk, stirred the mixture 3 times, reciting a short hymn linking fire, earth, bone, and spirit. Communal application. Apprentices and journeymen lined up around the mixing hearth. Each dipped their cloth or brush, applying initial seal coats in unison, chanting softly to align breath with brush strokes. IV. Unresolved thought as you picture jars of crimson ochre, simmering pots of resin, and bone dust swirling in air tools of ancient alchemy, blending durability and divine symbolism. Reflect. In our modern world of synthetic coatings and industrial pigments, what might we reclaim from these ritualized lineage-bound recipes, balancing ecological stewardship, ancestral respect, and artisanal care to create materials that carry both functional excellence and deep communal meaning? Pathways of green mapping, early exchange routes. Dim your lights, nestle into your pillow, and let the rhythm of ancient trade guide you into another chapter of buried histories. If you're finding these stories soothing, please like and subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we step beyond Monte Albán's walls and follow the trade winds that carried precious jadeite from the Sierra de Juarez across Mesoamerica, weaving a network of exchange that linked Zapotec workshops with coastal ports, Gulf lowlands, and Maya polities to the east. In this first section, you'll trace the emergence of these routes, from mule caravans trailing down mountain paths to canoe flotillas, navigating riverine highways. Learn how middlemen staged goods at strategic relay points, and discover how Jade's movement shaped regional economies, political alliances, and shared artistic vocabularies. As you drift through mist-shrouded passes and tropical estuaries, ponder how networks of exchange transformed distant communities into a single tapestry of reciprocity and trust. Our mountain passes and valley roads, the overland spine, from quarry camps to trade outposts by the late formative period c. 100 BCE. Jade prospecting camps had matured into permanent mountain villages. Hunters turned prospectors built storage pits for raw nodules, and gradually small markets emerged at trail junctions. Highland relays, at elevations around 1,600 to 1,800 meters. Sheltered camps such as El Paso de Jade and Rio Platados served as official way stations. Here, mule caravans exchanged fresh tool rations, water, and highland grains, quinoa, amaranth for stacked baskets of jade. Logbooks on birch bark, early scribes recorded weights and origins of each lot, using tally marks and simple glyphs to prevent disputes further downstream. Valley gateways, descending trails funneled into valley gateways, particularly near San Jose, Mogote, and Zaquila, where Zapotec middlemen maintained granaries and textile warehouses. Their jagged limestone huts doubled as customs posts. Incoming jade was weighed again, seals checked, and caravan guides compensated with salted fish or ceremonial cacao. These overland spines, straddling pine forests and subtropical scrub, formed the backbone of West-East Jade movement, ensuring regular, reliable flows into coastal plains. 2. River highways, canoe convoys, and fluvial commerce, tributary confluences and canoe-building centers, while overland portages carried heavy loads. River routes offered swifter transit for intermediate goods. Canoe fabrication hubs at the confluence of the Rio Verde and Rio Atoyac. Specialized craftsmen built large reed and wood canoes. These sturdy vessels, up to 6 meters long, bore cargo bays for padded jade crates and sheltered benches for paddlers. Canoe guild initiations. Apprentices in these hubs learned red weaving and caulking with pine resin sealant, rituals echoing jade, polishing practices binding reed strands while chanting invocations to water spirits. Flotilla convoys. Seasonal flotillas departed in synchronized launches, dozens of canoes moving in columns. A lead canoe carried a priest paddler who scattered maize offerings into the current, invoking safe passage for jade and accompanying trade goods, salt shells, tropical feathers, and obsidian tools sourced from highland quarries. Beast depots and commercial exchanges along the river's lower reaches. Small settlements. San Juan de las Aguas, Laguna Verde served as trading depots. Jade warehouses. Elevated platforms of woven reeds stored cratide. Jade lots above floodlines. Depot managers, often Zapotec traders married into Mixtec or Gulf Coast. Families negotiated splits and relabeled sealed packages for onward distribution. Market fairs, monthly fairs, drew merchants from Oaxaca's valleys, Gulf lowlands, and Pacific coast. Jade parcels exchanged for salted fish, cotton cloth, cocoa beans, and chilies, while travelers shared news reporting on political shifts, ecological changes, and security conditions along routes. This riverine commerce knit together ecological zones, allowing mountain greenstone to mingle with coastal bounty in a dynamic exchange. Mosaic.iii coastal outlets and maritime link. Pacific ports and sea voyages. Rivers fed into tidal estuaries near present-day Puerto Escondido and Huatulco, where Zapotec salt harvesters and canoe traders ventured into open sea. Salt-packed jade exports. Jade crates, cushioned with textile wraps, traveled aboard larger dugout canoes to coastal salt works there. Salt-packed wooden vats preserved jade during loading onto ocean-capable vessels. Reed rafts, reinforced with sewn planks. Maritime pilots and star navigation. Canoe captains, trained in star charts and currents, timed departures by lunar cycles. They hugged shorelines, stopping at fishing villages, Nocatztla and Tonala, to offload small jade pieces and pick up dried seafood and tropical hardwoods, mahogany for return trips. B. Gulf connections and cultural diffusion. While Pacific routes linked Zapotec centers to the west, Gulf Coast exchanges moved eastward. Splash points at Coatzacoalcos, marshland ports near present-day Coatzo received jade shipments by river and sea. Maya traders, fascinated by the western greenstone, carried parcels to Palenque and Tikal, where local workshops adapted Zapotec iconographies into Maya jade polychrome masks. Language of exchange. Glyph tags affixed to jade packages often bore dual-script Zapotec pictographs on one side, logograms understood by Maya or Olmec intermediaries on the other, ensuring clarity in multi-ethnic trade contexts. These maritime linkages expanded jade's influence beyond Oaxaca's mountains, embedding Zapotec artistry into the wider Mesoamerican craft continuum. Unresolved thought as you drift with flotilla columns under torchlit rivers, trek dusty passes where pack mules clatter, and imagine jade crates rocking on salt-laden rafts beneath starlit skies. Reflect on this. How do our modern supply chains powered by ships, rails, and digital ledgers parallel these ancient networks of resource flow, cultural exchange, and trust building? And what insights might we glean from the Zapotec's blend of ritual care and logistical precision? You traced jade's winding routes from Sierra passes to river flotillas and coastal voyages, witnessing how mountain prospectors, caravan guides, and maritime pilots wove far-flung communities into a shared tapestry of exchange. Now, in this second section, we delve deeper into the roles of intermediaries, the emergence of specialized jade markets, and how political alliances and rivalries shaped and were shaped by these trade networks. You'll meet the jade brokers, whose bilingual glyph tags bridged cultures. Explore monthly jade bazaars where alliances were forged over shared cups of cacao, and see how rulers leveraged jade flows to cement their power. As you drift through these bustling hubs, consider how trade networks both reflect and construct the social and political landscapes they traverse. Jade brokers and cross-cultural mediation. The rise of professional interpreters by the early classic period c. 200 to 600 C is trade extended into Maya and Gulf regions. Communication hurdles spurred the emergence of jade brokers specialists, fluent in Zapotec glyphs, Maya look, and Mixoc tonal languages. Bilingual codices. Brokers carried bark-bound notebooks, inscribed with parallel glosses, Zapotec tally lines on one page, Maya syllabic annotations on the facing leaf. When sealing jade packages, they stamped both scripts in cinnabar and indigo, ensuring clarity for distant recipients. Ritual oaths of neutrality to maintain trust. Brokers swore before a mixed panel of Zapotec elders and Maya emissaries, pledging, "I bind my words as tightly as jade's inner grain," serving neither edge nor heart but the true exchange of gift and pledge. Breaking this oath risked banishment from multiple kingdoms, a testament to their indispensable yet precarious position. B. Trusted custodians of jade. Lots once a jade broker accepted a consignment. Their duties extended beyond translation, secure, transport, Brokers traveled with mounted guards, often local warriors, swearing through familial alliances to protect cargo. In coastal legs, they joined paddle convoys under naval embargoes enforced by Zapotec Maya Treaties record, keeping each broker maintained triptychs of records, consonor copy Zapotec, documenting origin, weight, and intended craft use. Transit, copy Maya logograms noting expected delivery points and tribute obligations, secret ledger encrypted glyphs, tracking merchant loans, guild fees, and negotiated discounts visible only to the broker's lineage. This meticulous mediation anchored Jade trade in systems of accountability, forging durable interregional trust.ii. Jade bazaars, the pulse of exchange, monthly market cycles at key crossroads such as the Cagada de la Selva between Oaxaca Valley and Tehuantepec. Jade bazaars operated on fixed monthly schedules aligned with agricultural and ritual calendars. Market preparations, appointed by regional governors, laid out reed mat stalls in a circular pattern around a central sacred fire. Flags dyed in lineage colors marked each stall, while reed frameworks supported shade canopies, opening ceremony at dawn. Traders in bright cotton tunics processed around the fire, pouring maize beer onto coals to produce scented smoke, then drumming on turtle shell tambours to signal market open. Goods and services, stalls exhibited raw jade nodules, polished pendants, cutting tools, and even jade dust cosmetics. Adjacent stalls sold woven textiles, cacao paste, salt blocks, and exotic feathers, ensuring every trader found both jade wares and everyday necessities. Political and economic functions. These bazaars served multiple vital roles: alliance building, ritual, gift exchanges between Zapotec dignitaries, Maya envoys, and Gulf Coast chiefs cemented pacts, exchanging small jade medallions inscribed with each polity's emblem signified. Mutual recognition and defense agreements. Price setting and quality control. Market masters enforced price edicts, maximum rates per gram of raw jade and minimum quality. Thresholds for polished goods. Guild representatives judged wares before stalls opened, stamping a verified glyph in soot on acceptable items. This regulation prevented fraud and stabilized local economies. Information exchange. Traders relayed news route warnings, tribal conflicts, imperial edicts across the network. A single bazaar's gossip could influence tribute quotas at Monte Albán or spark preemptive grain shipments to vulnerable regions. The Jade bazaars thus functioned as economic engines, diplomatic venues, and intelligence hubs, anchoring Jade's flow in a living web of social and political intercourse. 3. Rulers, tribute, and the politics of Jade. Tribute alliances and royal patronage. Amantism-style temple states leveraged Jade trade to reinforce authority. Tribute delegations, subordinate towns delivered a proportion of their jade harvests to regional capitals or palenque, owning official seals that guaranteed local autonomy and tribute quotas. Royal workshops. Rulers maintained exclusive workshops, sometimes within palace compounds, where they commissioned high-status jade masterworks, colossal scepters, throne inlays, and ritual axes. Control over these commissions conveyed direct dominion over both material wealth and symbolic power. Gift diplomacy and interpolative visits. Rulers exchanged jade gifts, ornate plaques, ceremonial blades, alliances, or seeking favors. The durability and rarity of jade made such gifts especially potent. Their stone hardness, epitomizing political steadfastness, betrayed disruptions and diplomatic crises. Conversely, interruptions in jade flow could spark conflict. Route blockades. Political rivals sometimes disrupted caravan corridors, staging raids on mountain passes or river ports, forcing jade brokers to negotiate safe conduct treaties or reroute goods through more circuitous paths. Economic leverage. At times of conflict, central authorities withheld tribute-grade jade from border regions, reducing local rulers' ability to commission ritual regalia and undermining their legitimacy. Conversely, reopening trade routes became a diplomatic bargaining chip in peace negotiations. Through such maneuvers, jade trade became both a lifeline and a lever in Mesoamerica's intricate balance of power. Unresolved reflection. As you imagine the bustling bazaars under reed thatch, the brokers' coded ledgers, bridging tongues, and the candlelit palace workshops where royal masterworks were crafted. Reflect on this. How do our own global trade networks, interwoven with diplomacy, regulation, and cultural exchange, mirror these ancient dynamics? And what might we learn from the Zapotec's blend of ritualized markets, trusted intermediaries, and political patronage to forge networks rooted in both efficiency and shared respect? You traced Jade's journey along mountain passes, river flotillas, and coastal trade winds, met the bilingual jade brokers who secured its passage, lingered in monthly bazaars where alliances were sealed over cacao, and saw how rulers wielded jade flows as political capital. Now, in this final chapter of Story 9, we'll explore how these networks transmitted culture and craft across Mesoamerica, how they adapted fractured during times of upheaval, and how their echoes persist in modern trade and cultural landscapes. Through this, you'll gain insight into the resilience of exchange systems and the ways in which material connection shapes collective identity. a transmission of craft and iconography, cross-pollination of techniques, Maya adaptations of polishing. Maya workshops in the Usumacinta region adopted Zapotec 4-stage polishing sequentage sandstone, bone resin, sealant refined with local hardwood resins. They applied these methods to excavated Guatemalan jade, birthing uniquely luminous Maya masks and bead strands. Coastal obsidian workshops, inspired by Zapotec antler billet flaking. Gulf Coast carvers experimented with bone billets to shape obsidian, axes and ornamental knives, producing cleaner flake scars and setting. New standards for blade refinement. These technical transmissions were often mediated by broker marriages, Zapotec traders marrying Maya artisans, creating familial bridges that nurtured shared craft. Vocabularies.b. Iconographic. Blending hybrid motifs. Crescent moon jade discs from Oaxaca traders reached central Mexico, where Toltec artisans incised feathered serpent glyphs onto their surfaces, melding Zapotec cosmograms with central Mexican myth. Regional variations in the southern highlands. Pendants combined Zapotec mesa forms with local cloud glyphs, symbolizing rain-fed agriculture's lifeblood. Such blending reveals that trade did more than move objects. It wove visual languages that communities adapted to local narratives too. Disruptions, realignments, and decline. Environmental and political shocks. Drought and route abandonment. Severe droughts in the 9th century lowered river levels, making flotilla travel perilous and forcing a shift to overland caravans. Some riverine depots were abandoned, disrupting basin-wide exchange. Political fragmentation. As Monte Albán's hegemony waned, local rulers asserted autonomy over tribute routes, imposing tolls and redirecting jade flows to emergent centers like Mitla and This fracturing diluted the Zapotec trade monopoly and diversified jade's political patrons by survival through adaptations. Localizing craft. Communities once reliant on Sierra jade turned to serpentine and green slate, maintaining carving traditions, even as long-distance trade contracted. Ceremonial continuity. Despite material shifts, ritual uses of discs, bars, and iconographic motifs endured in regional burial and festival practices, testament to the deep cultural embedding of jade forms. Enduring echoes and modern resurgency. Archaeological rediscovery of networks, route mapping. Recent GIS studies and ceramic-sourced geochemical analyses have retraced ancient caravan trails and river channels, confirming the breadth of Zapotec jade's reach across hundreds of kilometers. From the Sierra foothills to Maya lowlands, broker codices. Fragmentary bark ledgers found in cave caches have revealed glimpses of brokers' signatures and trade tallies, illuminating Mesoamerica's early logistics and underscoring the sophistication of pre-Hispanic record-keeping. Contemporary cultural and economic legacies. Heritage trade routes. Community cooperatives in Oaxaca have reconstructed sections of ancient trails, offering guided jade road treks that immerse visitors in historical landscapes, reviving the spirit of exchange that once pulsed through mountain corridors. Artisanal cooperatives. Modern artisans blend ancestral polishing recipes with contemporary design, exporting jade-inspired jewelry globally. They collaborate with Maya and Mixtec partners, honoring the old broker alliances and sustaining cross-cultural craft networks. Thought-provoking reflection. As you rest with the image of jade caravans threading mountain fog, brokers bridging tongues, and cross-cultural artisans shaping stones. Consider what modern networks, digital, economic, or social, might you weave to foster collaboration, resilience, and shared creativity across distances. Echoing the enduring spirit of these ancient trade winds, from stone to song, origins of jade sound tools. Dim your lights, settle beneath your covers, and let the hush of ancient rituals guide your thoughts toward calm. If these whispered explorations ease you into rest, please like and subscribe and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we shift from silent stones to resonant sanctuaries, exploring how Zapotec artisans carved jade into musical instruments, bells, rattles, and flutes that shape the acoustic landscapes of temple ceremonies and funerary rites. In this first section, you'll discover how simple impressions of sound and hard greenstone gave rise to carefully tuned instruments. Learn about the carving techniques adapted for acoustic precision, and witness the first ritual performances that bound jade's gleaming surfaces to the ethereal realm of music and prayer. As this section closes, listen with your mind's ear to the faint echoes of jade against jade, and ponder how sound and stone together usher souls and communities into the sacred eye. Early experiments with resonance, echoes in jade. Natural resonance discovered before formal instrument types emerged. Apprentices playing with flake chips and disc fragments noticed subtle echoes when striking to jade pieces together. Flake chip tapping. In polishing yards, novices sometimes tapped small, trim chips against each other to test translucent. They found that larger chips or thicker disc fragments produced discernible clicks, their pitch varying with size and thickness. Disc resonance. Early discs left over from funerary commissions, repurposed by apprentices, yielded soft ringing when gently struck at the rim. These chance discoveries sparked systematic experiments. carvers would tap discs at different points, noting where the tone was clearest and most sustained. These observations revealed that jade's fine crystalline structure could carry and emit sound, planting the seed for purpose-built jade. Instrumentsb carving tools and techniques, adapted for acoustics, translating resonance experiments into playable instruments. Demanded specialized carving and tuning methods. 1. Percussive strike plates. Protobel's initial shaping. Masters selected thick, roughly rectangular jade slabs, 1015 cm long, 3 to 5 centimeters thick, and flaked away the outer matrix to create a flat striking surface. They carved the block into a semi-open lupan early bell form by removing interior material, leaving a thick arch. Tuning flake removal. Apprentices used antler billets to chip small flakes from specific points on the arch's interior curve. Each chip slightly altered the effective vibration length, raising or lowering the bell's pitch. Masters demonstrated precise billet blows, achieving incremental halftone adjustments. Fine polishing for clarity. Final abrasion of striking surfaces. With coarse sand, then bone resin pastes, removed micro imperfections that muffled sound. A perfectly polished rim yielded the clearest ring, while a matte surface dampened overtones. 2. Rattle assemblages. Jade clappers design concept. Carved pairs of small jade tablets held together by leather straps could clap against each other when shaken. These clapper rattles required symmetrical shaping to ensure even contact and consistent timbre. Symmetry workshops. Apprentices worked in pairs, each carving one tablet, then comparing edge profiles and weight. Using reed fiber mesh sieves under the tablets, they dropped them from fixed height 60 centimeters, listening for balanced volume. Imbalances were corrected by light flake removal at weighted points. 3. Jade flutes and carved pipes. Material selection. Long jade cores up to 20 centimeters length, 2 centimeters diameter were ideal for flutes. Carvers chose the straightest, most uniformly translucent cores to minimize internal fractures. Drilling techniques. Borrowing rotary brace methods from pendant production, artisans used deerbone or copper drills to maintain pitch accuracy. They pre-drilled guide holes with tiny obsidian holes, then employed steadily rotated drills, winding leather straps around brace shafts for consistent torque. Finger hole placement. Masters measured hole spacing using cord calipers, lengths of palm fiber cord knotted at precise intervals, corresponding to musical scales derived from natural harmonic overtone series. Apprentices drilled finger holes at these nodal points, careful to maintain smooth edges for airtight play. 2 Early rituals and the sound of jade. Inaugural ceremonies for sound tools before jade bells or flutes could enter temple use. They underwent consecration, water, and smoke purification. New instruments were immersed in spring water gathered during the solstice and then brushed with copal smoke. This double purification cleansed any residual stone dust and tied the instrument's sound to natural elements. First strike blessing. Priests of Kosajo, rain god or Koke, patron of artisans, performed initial soundings. For bells they tapped 3 times at dawn, each strike accompanied by an invocation. Echo of stone. Herald of the sky, ring forth our prayers in sacred tone. 4 flutes. A priest played the 4-note dawn song first, a rising motif symbolizing sunrise, drawing parallels between music's breath and the wind spirits that carry prayers. Integration into a temple. Soundscapes and consecrated. Jade instruments entered ritual performances, processional music during temple processions, especially for rain-invoking ceremonies. Percussionists carried jade bells, their oscillating rings mingling with flute drones. The clear bell-like overtones cut through droning chants, marking rhythmic transitions in liturgy. Funerary accompaniments in funerary rites. Jade clapper, soft yet penetrating, accompanied laments carried by funerary attendants. Their staccato pulses echoed through tomb corridors, guiding the deceased spirit step by step toward ancestral realms. Acoustic architecture. Temple patios and tomb antechambers featured stone walls, angled and smoothed to reflect jade sounds. Carvers sometimes filed small notches near acoustically focal points, mirroring the way resonant chambers in flutes amplify tone-enhancing communal listening experiences. Unresolved thought as you hear in your mind's ear the clear ring of jade bells, the pulse of clapper rattles, and the breath-bound melodies of carved flutes echoing through stone courtyards. Reflect. How do the materials and shapes we choose in crafting instruments, whether wooden violins, brass horns, or electronic synthesizers, root our music in the physical world? And what might we learn from these ancient jade sound tools about the intertwining of material, acoustics, and spiritual meaning? Harmonies of ritual ensembles, performance contexts, and acoustic spaces. Dim your lights, pull your blanket snug, and let the gentle hush of jade's first notes guide you deeper into rest. If these explorations of ancient soundscapes bring you calm, please like and subscribe and share where you're joining from and what time it is for you. Tonight, we move beyond individual jade instruments to the collective performance, the ensembles that wove bells, rattles, and flutes into sacred ceremonies, the architectural spaces that shaped their resonance, and the social roles of musicians, whose breath and strikes gave voice to the stone. By the end of this section, you'll hear in your imagination the layered harmonies that summoned rain, guided funerary rites, and bound communities through shared sound, and you'll ponder how our own communal voices and spaces shape the music that binds us. Jade ensembles, combining voices of bell and rattle pairings in many temple rituals. Jade percussive instruments, bells and clappers, were played together to produce complementary textures. Bell-led rattle response. A master percussionist wielded a large jade bell carved in an open loop with interior tuning flakes counterbalanced for a sustained sonorous ring. Each strike initiated a slow decay of tone. Seated or kneeling beside the bell player, a secondary musician shook jade clappers, pairs of small tablets bound by leather straps producing staccato pulses. The interplay evoked, in ritual terms, the dialogue between sky thunder and earth rumble. Interlocking rhythms. Ensembles rehearsed specific rhythmic patterns. 3 slow bell tolls followed by 6 rapid claps, mimicking the 3 phases of rainfall, drizzle, downpour, receding. Apprentices practiced these cycles on raw stone mock instruments, counting beats in hushed whispers until precision rendered the pattern seamless, choreographed movement. Musicians often moved in semicircular circuits around temple patios. As the bell's sound radiated outward, the rattle's quick pulses moved back toward the center. This motion symbolized circulation of blessings, outward prosperity and inward purification, each loop aligning with spatial hierarchies of the ritual. Melodic integration. Flute counterpoint. Flutes carved from jade or mixed jade serpentine cores, though less commenjoint percussion in melodic counterpoint. Calendrical structures. Priestly flautists played brief melodic motifs, 4-note phrases that signified invocation, answering the bell's toll with breath-borne melodies. The bell's first strike acted as the call, and flute phrases responded, establishing a musical dialogue understood as communication with deities. Polyphony in rain ceremonies and elaborate rain-calling rituals. 2 or 3 flautists with slightly different fingerhole tunings created harmonic intervals, their breaths weaving a drone beneath percussion. As rain clouds gathered overhead, the layered soundscape mirrored environmental crescendo, aligning human song with natural symphony. Dynamic control. Masters graded their flute's tone by varying breath pressure and embouchure. Softer whispers signified respectful petition, whereas stronger blasts summoned more urgent rituals, often transitioning from incantation to communal chant. Apprentices learned to gauge temple acoustics, adjusting tone to avoid harsh echoes in sanctuaries. 2. Acoustic architecture. Spaces that shaped sound. Temple patios and echo chambers. Zapotec temple complexes featured design elements tuned to jade's resonant qualities. Reflective stone walls. Courtyards were enclosed by masonry walls of polished limestone, their flat faces perpendicularly aligned. 2 main ritual axes. Jade bells struck near these walls produced clear echoes, extending the sound's reach into adjacent plazas and deepening its perceived power. Sound apertures. Small niches carved into plaster walls intended for ceramic lamps served double duty as acoustic apertures. By placing flautists within these niches, sound projected through narrow openings, focusing and amplifying melodic lines across open spaces. Sunken performance pits. Certain temple floors featured shallow depressions 3 to 4 steps below plaza level where percussionists sat. The surrounding stones rose in tiers, framing instruments like stage prosceniums. This elevation difference created a natural resonance chamber. Low frequencies from bells reverberated longer, while high chime tones remained crisp. Tomb chambers and subterranean acoustics. Jade instruments played a role inside burial vaults, whose architecture enhanced ritual intimacy. Narrow vaulted ceilings. Small antechambers had low arches of cut stone. When a jade bell tolled inside, the sound's decay was swift, creating a momentary stillness that signaled ritual transition and oral closing of the world as priests sealed chambers. Directional sound markers. Clappers placed at chamber corners tapped gently in sequence, created directional cues. East corner for sunrise invocation, north for ancestral greeting, south for fertility plea, and west for nightworld passage. Listeners understood spatial symbolism through sound placement. Subterranean drones. Flutes played in deeper tomb levels. Going down corridors produced haunting drones that, according to tradition, called the deceased to gather at the tomb threshold. This low, reverberant sound impressed both living attendants and, it was believed, spiritual travelers approaching from the underworld. 3. Musicians and social roles. Ritual musicians as mediators. Musicians who handled jade instruments held unique social statuses. Hereditary music guilds. Musical roles. Bell player, flautist, rattlebearer. Fourth and passed through families. Young apprentices from these families learned both musical technique and underlying ritual lore, taking oaths akin to jade carvers, pledges of purity, accuracy, and reverence for ancestral sound. Intermediaries with the divine. Musicians served as mediators. Their instruments' first bell tolls or flute calls marked the opening words to deities. In funeral rites their sounds preceded coffin interments, believed to clear spiritual paths and announce passage. Thus, they occupied both artistic and sacerdotal roles. B. Training and apprenticeship in sound. Formal musical apprenticeships paralleled those of jade artisans. Instrument craft understanding. E4. Learning performance. Novices carved proto-instruments from soft cockle shells, wood offcuts, or serpentine scrap, developing sensitivity to how material shapes influence tone. This mirrored jade apprentices' early trials on scrap chips. Rhythmic drills and chant integration. Novices practiced simple rhythmic motifs, bell rattle sequences before integrating chant. Masters guided them to breathe in sync with drum pulses or pulse percussion in time with vocal refrains. Forging cohesive liturgical soundscapes. Public demonstration ceremonies. Completion of training culminated in a sound offering festival, where apprentices presented their first public performances. 3. Ritual motifs. Learned in secret workshops and received approval from both carver and music guild elders. Unresolved reflection. As you imagine the mingled echoes of jade bells, the crisp pulses of clappers, and the breath-drawn melodies of flutes weaving through sunlit courtyards and vaulted tombs, reflect in our own sacred and communal music found in concert halls, places of worship and public gatherings. How do the materials we choose, the spaces we create, and the rituals we observe shape the shared experience of sound? And what might we learn from the jade soundscapes of Monte Albán about the power of music to unite, to transition, and to carry us between worlds? You heard the birth of jade instruments in workshop experiments, their consecration in dawn bell blessings, and their layered performance in temple ensembles and tomb acoustics woven into the most solemn of ceremonies. Now, in this final chapter of Story 10, we trace how jade's sacred soundscapes endured through upheaval, influence later musical traditions, and resonate today in revivalist performances in contemporary art. We'll explore the decline of jade music under colonial pressures, the secret survival of acoustic rites, and modern efforts to rekindle Monte Albán's jade voice, reminding us that sound, like stone, can carry memory across centuries. Decline and transformation. Colonial disruption of acoustic rituals. When Spanish colonists suppressed indigenous ceremonies in the 16th century, temple musicians, bell players, flautists, rattlers faced prohibitions, confiscation of sacred instruments. Missionaries often seized jade instruments, defacing them or relegating them to storage. Without official sanction, public performances ceased, and many instruments were lost or repurposed. Underground continuance. Some guilds smuggled small jade clappers and flutes into private homes. In hidden courtyards, families preserved muted versions of ancestral melodies, whispered prayers to earth and sky, passing them orally through generations. B. Post-colonial syncretism. Over time, indigenous sound traditions intertwined with Spanish forms, hybrid bells. Colonial-era artisans fashioned wooden bells hung in church bells, their rhythmic tolls echoing Catholic liturgies, but reminding listeners of ancestral jade rhythms and acoustic palimpsest of old and new. Flute dances. Zapotec communities adapted Spanish zarzuela tunes to local flute styles, blending European scales with traditional fingerhole placements, keeping aspects of jade flute technique alive in festive contexts. To modern rediscovery and revival. Ethnographic documentation. 20th century scholars and folklorists recorded remaining traditions. Field recordings. Pioneering sound engineers captured ritual flute motifs in remote Zapotec villages' melodies, whose phrasing suggested the old calandras patterns once paired with jade bells. Instrument reassembly. Archaeological finds of jade bell fragments prompted ethnomusicologists to reconstruct playable replicas, experimenting in temple patio reconstructions to recover original resonances. B. Contemporary performances and installations. In recent decades, a renaissance of jade soundscapes has emerged. Festival of Jade Echoes. Monte Albán hosts annual concerts where modern carvers and musicians perform on newly carved jade bells and flutes, reanimating ancient ritual sequences before candlelit terraces. Audiences hear the clear ring of stone in its original acoustic terrain. Arts finds collaborations. Acoustic engineers and artists create gallery installations where sensors trigger jade bell sounds in response to visitor movement, melding ancestral timbres with interactive technology, echoing the communal call and response of temple processions. Educational workshops. Cultural centers offer hands-on classes. Participants carve soapstone proto-instruments, learn basic rhythmic patterns, and play simplified jade rattle sequences. The mindful focus that once bound musicians to stone. 3. Enduring lessons of sound and stone. Material resonance. As memory, jade's crystalline structure continues to ring, reminding us that objects carry histories. Each bell's overtones embody countless hands that chipped, polished, and consecrated it. In our own crafts, whether instrument, building, digital design, or architectural acoustics, we inherit layers of material memory. B. Spatial sound and communitized pot sound. Rituals demonstrate place shapes performance. Temple patios, tomb chambers, and plazas were as vital as instruments. Today, Architects and planners designing concert halls or public spaces might study Monte Albán's reflective walls and niches to craft environments where sound and community interlace. See ritual in modern music. Finally, Jade soundscapes teach that ritual infuses meaning into music. The consecration rites that purified instruments and sealed ceremonies remind us that performance and listening can be acts of collective reverence. In our contemporary lives, adopting small rituals, tuning instruments with intention, acknowledging silent moments can deepen the emotional and cultural resonance of shared sound. Thought-provoking reflection is, you rest now with the imagined ring of an ancient jade bell and the fading echo of flutes in starlit courtyards. Consider, what sounds and rituals might you cultivate in your own community, whether through music, gathering spaces, or simple shared moments to create living memory that resonates long after the moment has passed.